All right. Let me know if you guys can see the audio. I hate to keep kicking you guys out of here, but sometimes you have to restart this system for it to recognize it. Again, as you can see, these meters over here showing that I have audio. Before I reset everything and bring that back in the room, you guys could give me the thumbs up or just say that you can hear me. That's all that I need. Okay, cool. All right. Sorry about that. It's been a while since I had any technical issues like that, but nevertheless, we have it settled. Let me go back to this video right here. I think this will give you guys a little bit of a recap. As I said in my video yesterday, my son is having some issues right now. So if you guys don't mind, I will probably have him seated right behind me over here as my co-pilot while we get things going. So he's actually just got out of the pool and he's told him to go inside and get dressed and come meet me out here. So let me get this video started real quick, kind of catch everybody up to date on what's happening. Again, it sounds like a guy was going to be evicted from an apartment complex or a location rather. And as law enforcement got there, I'm not sure if they were called later. This hopefully will clarify some things. I've just been getting bits and pieces of information, but he opened fire on people and it sounds like over 100 rounds have been fired so far. Law enforcement are injured. A crazy situation over there. So here we go.
Paul Van Osdal, our investigative reporter here at Pittsburgh's Action News 4. Paul, you have information on who this person is?
Yes, that's right. We've been looking into the background of the suspect, and his name is William Hardison Jr. And court records show just this morning an eviction of Hardison was scheduled at that address on Broad Street here in Garfield, where the standoff occurred. Now, the home was owned by a man who appears to be Hardison's father, William Hardison Sr. It was occupied by William Hardison Jr. Earlier this year, the elder Hardison, he sold that house to a company called 907 East Street. Now, in May, that company filed a complaint to evict Hardison Jr., but they say he refused to leave, and they say he has also refused to pay rent for the past 5 months. Now, just last week, a judge granted a request by the property owner to evict Hardison, not only evict Hardison, but to lock his belongings inside the house following today's eviction. That was just approved last week by the judge in this case. Now, we also found some information on Hardison Jr.'s criminal history. Most recently, it's mostly minor stuff, nothing overly violent. Back just last year, he entered a guilty plea to carrying a firearm without a license. He got 2 years probation for that. It was 17 years earlier, was his most recent offense, where he entered a guilty plea to forgery or altering a title or registration. He got 3 years probation on that case. Also back in 2005, he entered a guilty plea to an accident involving death or injury and got 2 years probation. Back in 2001, he entered a guilty plea to fleeing or attempting to elude and disorderly conduct, as well as marijuana possession, and he got 6 months probation on that case. And this house, before it was owned by Hardison Jr.'s father, it was actually owned by his brother. And after his brother's death, the father took over the house. He was the main heir of the brother's estate. The brother lived in Michigan. And again, after the father took over the house, he sold it to this company, which tried to evict William Hardison Jr. And the eviction was supposed to happen this morning. As we know, that's when the standoff occurred. In fact, police radio show the initial shots were fired just after 10:30, and that was the exact time that the eviction was scheduled for. We're live in Garfield. and Paul Van Osdal, Pittsburgh's Action News 4. Back to you.
All right. So that's a little bit of an update. Let me run back to this video real quick. So we have another one that it looks like this was the report when all of this went down. Stand by.
New drops half
Again,
price.
for some reason I can't seem to get past any of their stupid commercials. Another eBay commercial. You cannot get past the eBay commercial. You must watch
we want
the
to
eBay commercial.
have you listen to a little piece of video that we had shot just a short time ago.
They're actively shooting. I need people here now to shut down the street.
Right. So these are police dispatches. We are getting the police broadcast from the radio from this emergency situation. So we're gathering that information. People being told to stay away from the area as all of this erupted around 10:30 this morning. The big update that Elena, you were just able to get from your source, in combination with reporter Marcy Cipriani at the street on the street, telling us that tear gas is a good way to get an individual like this out of the house. That's been deployed. So now everybody is just waiting to see exactly what takes place next. So many people hoping for a quick conclusion to this and a safe conclusion to this.
Of course. And we've been hearing from everybody in that neighborhood. We've had Ashley Zilka on the scene there talking to people who live there, who work there. Several people have said this has been a very scary morning and now into the afternoon for them. They're not exactly sure what's been going on. And, of course, this is as much as we know at this point. Suspects still inside of that home. My source tells me they are deployed. They have deployed gas in order to try to get the suspect out of that home, force that person out of there, and of course put an end to this situation. We know one person was rescued. That was reportedly the neighbor who was probably stuck inside of their home for a couple of hours before police were finally able to get to them and get them out safely, which you watched unfold live on Sky 4.
Elena, what has been striking to me with all of the interviews that Ashley Zilka has done there on the scene with neighbors, people who live in this community, their first reaction is that it was scary. Their second reaction is that it is sad. That you heard one woman describe Garfield, her neighborhood, as an up-and-coming neighborhood. This is a wonderful pocket of Pittsburgh. This is a wonderful place where people just want to go to work and raise their families, and that is interrupted by this today. And everything's just on hold. People holding their collective breath. One thing we have heard throughout the day and throughout the morning are those police dispatches of this emergency situation of an active shooter. Let's give you another peek into some of those radio dispatches.
One needs to stay away from Millville Avenue. Anywhere, Kincaid, all of this, that's where I'm at. It's still an active scene.
Even more from police saying that there was an active shooter, not the words you want to hear on a Wednesday morning, knowing that this is a neighborhood that you're connected to, that you have loved ones here on this street, just off of Penn Avenue. Here's a little bit more of those police dispatches.
We have an active shooter situation, Zone 5. Actors pulled up in the house with gasoline threatening to burn the house down.
Yeah, so that is new. That's a new dispatch that we are hearing that happened before that one of those first calls from 911.
Notice something blew out the back
that there
on that
was
video.
An active shooter. He had gasoline
Back of the house,
and that he was threatening to burn the house down. We have pieced together the story of this violence through reporter Marcy Cipriani, Ashley Zilka as well. And one thing that both of them had indicated to us that at one point police heard from a family member who was incredibly distraught, upset, crying, even falling on the ground, explaining that this individual is his uncle and he's clearly worried for him and how this whole thing is going to end for him. And, the police are trying to gather information and intelligence about how to deal with this individual and exactly what the danger may be inside.
Okay, folks, so I'm not sure if we have any other updates besides that.
We'll get out.
You guys are okay? Let me kill that video. It's impossible to get rid of some of these commercials, man. I mean, you can't even click on the damn thing to...
Afternoon.
Jeez. In other words, they've killed the dang pause buttons on some of these. I'm going to pull a couple of these other videos, just trying to catch all of us up to speed right now. If you guys are okay with that, let's grab this next one. Again, another commercial. We're all going to know this eBay commercial before it's all over with.
That is frightening. And it just doesn't stop. Yes, a terrifying situation for people in Pittsburgh's Garfield neighborhood. Shot after shot, hundreds of shots fired. Sources telling Pittsburgh's Action News 4 that sheriff's deputies were trying to serve an eviction notice at a home near Broad and North Matilda Streets. This is not too far
Is that
from
normal
Penn
for
Avenue
sheriff's
in
deputies to
Garfield.
serve an eviction notice? I'm guessing it is. Let me kill that audio real quick because it's going to pop back up. I'm assuming that's normal. I want to show this. Good Lord. I want to show this video right here. Notice on the backside of this apartment complex, or whatever you want to call this place, once again, eBay getting their money's worth out of this today. I killed the video on that for right now on my site until this stupid commercial's over with. We've seen it 4 times already.
Here we go. Here we go. More gunfire.
Look at the
This is
backside of the
unbelievable. This
house.
is what we hear every 15, 20 minutes. Just going to take a break for a second.
The backside over here, like upper right-hand corner of your screen. See all the smoke come out of the back? So something, there's people on both sides. It's weird because you see how it's kind of like a duplex, but obviously more than just 2. They share walls in between all of them. I'm curious why, law enforcement doesn't mind tearing things up. I'm curious why they haven't gone to the house next door, just busted the wall in to get through there. Of course, the guy's shooting at them, so I guess you have the same issue there. But yeah, they have the Bearcat right up to the front door, and it looked like there was smoke coming out of the back of the house as well. I think the guy threatened to burn the house down as well. He's not coming out of here alive, I can tell you that. Unless he runs out of ammo, and then he'll probably still run out with his gun and get shot. I wonder if this guy has Epstein's list. That's wild, man. Look at all the smoke coming out of the back now. That's a ton of smoke. Something's got to be burning in the back. I can't imagine. So this Pittsburgh, I like to go, like you guys that follow my channel know, I like to go to the local affiliates because they're usually pretty good. Let me go to the live stream that they have right here. This is live according to the location that they have. So this may be it. 5th time. Okay, this should be the live coverage now. Yep, here we go.
It's definitely taking its toll.
Yeah, and it's not just that specific community, nearby communities as
What?
well. We at Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter
Bob
Bob Mayo standing by.
Every time I click off of it, it pauses. I apologize for that. I guess I'll just stay on it. I can't read your comments if I stay on their screen, but let me do that.
Friendship Park, which is behind West Penn Hospital, as you can see here. And through a portion of the afternoon, as this incident has been playing out blocks away from here, they had been on a restricted lockdown. We've been in communication with AHN, Allegheny Health Network.
This is live.
They say that they're no longer under a restricted lockdown, but they're now in a controlled access situation. Previously, only employees were allowed to enter and exit through the emergency room area at the start and beginning of their shifts. They're now saying that West Penn Hospital patients with appointments or other businesses in the hospital can enter and exit the hospital at select entrance points with an enhanced security presence here. So that is the situation. But as you're seeing, there is still a lineup of cars here along Friendship Avenue, looping around frequent red taillights flashing because traffic is, which is normally starting to get heavier around this time of day, is heavier still and has been through the day because of the number of streets in the vicinity that have been closed because of this ongoing incident, and streets closed and the presence of SWAT teams here. So that situation playing out. There were moments earlier in this incident where employees were being escorted by hospital security to their vehicles as they left the building, having to go down the street in the direction of where we periodically have heard the sound of gunfire in the distance. So that's the latest here from Friendship Park, right behind West Penn Hospital. Reporting live, Bob Mayo, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. And we just want to welcome Andrew into our coverage now this afternoon. Shannon's going to take a break, go back to the newsroom, get some more information and work some sources for us as well. But as you see, we've had crews all over the area, and they are working every angle of this story best we can. So we do want to do a reset for you and get you up to speed if you're just joining us here for our coverage.
That's right. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 4 o'clock starts right now.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
All right, so this should be good. We should get a really good update right here. This is locally in Pittsburgh where the shooting's taking place.
Gunshots ring out in a Pittsburgh neighborhood.
And I mean, they've been firing and firing and firing.
An hours-long battle between police and a barricaded man.
We heard it. We heard a bunch of cops rolling down the street.
Neighbors evacuated and rescued. Smoke and gas deployed in an effort to end the standoff.
It's scary because I'm like thinking kids, people's houses, bullets don't have no names. Bullets can go through houses.
All right, and good afternoon. And we do want to thank you for joining us here at Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 4 o'clock. I'm Kelly Sasser.
And good afternoon. I am Andrew Stockey. We're keeping you on top of this developing situation unfolding today here in the city of Pittsburgh. The gunfire ringing out throughout the Garfield neighborhood today. This video taken at a nearby home. And those gunshots, as you heard, are deafening.
And we are told this is the suspect, Bill Hardison. Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Gosh, turn her mic up.
A short time ago, as they're calling for him to surrender.
We'll have that for you in just a moment. But first, take a look at this. The center of the investigation this afternoon. We're talking about the area of Broad Street and North Matilda. Of course, this is the Garfield neighborhood we've been talking about all afternoon. Now, Pittsburgh Public Safety says evacuations are underway, with officers evacuating people from homes in the 4800 block of Broad Street. People inside there, they've been told all day long, shelter in place, then call 911 to identify your location and your address. Officers then will enter the area and guide you to a safe area. Now, Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani, she's been on the ground all afternoon long following the very latest developments. She joins us live from the scene right now. So, Marcy, at this hour, what can you tell us?
Well, Andrew, according to my source, they are now sending a robot inside the bathroom. I'm told the suspect was on the second floor of that home in the bathroom. They believe he may be injured or he may be deceased, but they are sending a robot in to confirm that. And this is following what we heard just a short time ago, a minute's worth of gunfire. That is, I can't even count how many times we've heard rapid gunfire here since shortly after 10:30 when this shooting started. I want to go ahead though and show you where I am. You can see the officers over there. They are about a block behind the 4800 block of Broad Street. That is where the home is located, where investigators say the shooting started after sheriff's deputies arrived here to serve an eviction notice. We are told that one sheriff's deputy was injured at that point once the shooting started, but not injured and is expected to be okay. Now, throughout the day,
injured, but not injured.
every
I think she meant
SWAT
not
team
shot.
in Western Pennsylvania, according to my source, has been here on the scene and remains here on the scene, as well as the state police SWAT team. They are here as well, several different agencies, and they had been communicating with the suspect. Just a short time ago, they were actually trying to get him to surrender. Then we heard flashbangs, and then we smelled gas being deployed. We could actually smell that over here. That's when that rapid gunfire started. So once again, the latest information from my source is that they are sending a robot in second floor bathroom to see if the suspect is still alive. That is the very latest from my location here, about a block and a half away from the shooting in Garfield. Marcy Cipriani, back to you.
Marcy, before you go, you've been out there all afternoon long. Give our viewers a sense of these gunshots. Obviously, there was a number of gunshots a short time ago. How many have happened today, and how large have they been?
How large?
Well, you know, Andrew, they started almost immediately after we arrived. So obviously there were some before we came. That's what created the scene here. But when we got here a little after 11, we were immediately greeted by rapid fire. And I couldn't even estimate how many. It's definitely more than 500 rounds, probably closer to 1,000 at this point. It's been happening all day long in rapid succession. There's been a little break in between, and then it starts up again. And the most recent ones, like I said, lasted about a minute. That was the longest. There's a couple of times during the day where we've actually taken cover behind vehicles. A woman was yelling for us to go inside her home, but we are a block over from Broad Street. And just down there is where the home is. So there is a lot of homes in our way. We were along Broad Street for a good amount of time today. A lot of people were gathered there. Police moved us out of that area just a short time ago. So I can't tell you that there has been longer than maybe an hour break in the gunshots throughout the day, Andrew.
Frightening scene, Marcy. Marcy Cipriani live for us on the location in Garfield. Please stay safe, get to a safe location. Hopefully,
he didn't answer how big the shots were, like he asked.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and really amazing to say with the amount of gunfire that, as far as we know right now, no one has been shot.
No one shot.
No bystanders and no officers. But we, of course, we're going to keep posted. It's still a fluid situation. And as we did tell you, this all began as sheriff's deputies were serving an eviction notice this morning. Now, we're told this is the suspect, Bill Hardison. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 actually spoke with his family a short time ago, and they are calling for him to surrender. We're going to have more on that interview coming up in just a moment.
But first, Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Paul Van Osdal joins us live now with a conversation that, Paul, you had with a family member of a suspect this afternoon.
Right, Andrew, we spoke to the son of William Hardison, whose name is also William Hardison. He is a truck driver based in Atlanta. We spoke to him while he was on the road. He was in Ohio, and he and his family have been trying all day to try to get a hold of his father and beg him to come out. And he talked to us in the hopes that his father would hear this message.
Hey, Dad, please surrender. Please give up. You have children and grandchildren. I love you dearly. Please stand down.
What's he like as a person?
He's a great. He's a very stern individual. You know, he's a man's man. You know what I mean? But he stands on what he believes in, and when he believes in something, he's gonna fight tooth and nail about it. You know, but he's a great person outside of that. You know what I mean? So.
Based on what we were talking about earlier, does he believe that this house rightfully belongs to him?
Yes, very much so.
Why is that?
Because my uncle, you know, my uncle passed away. You know what I mean? And he, like I said, he only had a few more years left to pay on the house. You know what I mean? So why would they sell it to someone for $25,000? When hundreds of thousands of dollars have been put into that house. You know what I mean? They just redid the house. They just remodeled the house in the process of him passing away.
A lot of backstory here. A lot we don't know.
And as you could hear from the son, this house has been the subject of a series of transactions involving family members, which led to the eviction. Basically, the house was owned by William Hardison's brother. He died last year, and then his father took over possession of the house under terms of the will, and then the father sold the house to a local real estate company, and they are the ones who began the eviction proceedings because they claim William Hardison was squatting here and he had not paid rent for 5 months and he had no legitimate right to the house. And the eviction was to take place this morning at 10:30. And that is when the confrontation began with police. But as the son said, the father believed that the house was rightfully his. Reporting live in Garfield, Paul Van Osdal, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
It's not
Paul
the way
doing
it works,
such a great job for us so quickly, digging into the background there. So we're going to check in again soon, but thank you for that report. As he mentioned, this all started at 10:30 this morning. It's almost 4:10 now, so we're approaching 6 hours since this started.
A long and tiring day for everyone involved, and sheriff's deputies say.
Okay, real quick, I want to let's see. We're going to pause him for a second. I want to repeat what they just said. This is the first time I've gotten a little bit of clarification about what actually happened. Okay, from what they just said, from what the reporter on the ground said, it sounds like okay, this home, which looked like it was an apartment in the midst of one big long building, there was a bunch of sub apartments connected. They share a wall, a left and a right side. It sounds like this guy who's in there now, involved in the shooting, that his brother owned the place, and his brother paid quite a bit on the home, as the son just said over the telephone. And the brother of this suspect died. And let me pin that real quick. I'm trying to get you guys comments in here best I can. So when the brother of the suspect who owned the home died, he willed the home to their father. So, which is the dad of the suspect also in this shooting, of course. So he willed it to the father. With the father then, and it sounds like the son was living in the home at the time. The father then sold it to a real estate agency who then is evicting, in the process of evicting the son. So it sounds like there's a lot of bad blood in this family. Sounds like the dad sold this knowing the other son was living in the house. So there's a lot of backstory here. This is not as cut and dry as you might think. If that is in fact the story, while the father might be a little bit shady for selling the home out from under the son, we don't know what the backstory on the son is. The son may be a loser, and the dad was getting no money, yet the dad was having to pay taxes and all kinds of other stuff on the property. And that's a very strong possibility. And he just sold it to somebody else so that they could deal with the problem. That's more than likely what happened. Hold on, buddy. Sorry, y'all. My son's in the back behind me. Again, while it may be kind of odd that the father would initiate this, it doesn't mean that this house all of a sudden becomes the other son's house just because his brother died. Again, the father received the home in the will, so that doesn't make it the son's house all of a sudden. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now. I would like to continue to play this, but that was my biggest thing is what's the backstory? Where are we at? How did we get here? And it sounds like the real estate company who had purchased the now sold home from the dad went over there to evict this person, and that's when he initially started shooting at them. It sounds like he showed up with the sheriff's department, and that's whenever the firefight started. They're probably exaggerating a little bit, but they're talking about now up to 1,000 rounds have been shot. Nobody outside the home was shot. A lot of this sounds like rifle fire. So, I mean, I would imagine that the suspect could be shot at this point. We simply don't know that. But nevertheless, that's kind of where we are now. My biggest question mark at this point was, how did we get here? So I just kind of want to share that with you guys.
Action News 4 reporter Bob Mayo this afternoon.
Yeah, Bob, you've been out there for us all afternoon speaking with folks kind of caught up in some of the extra traffic, some coming to you saying, what's the latest here? So kind of set the scene for us in your part of town.
Yeah, we're at Friendship Park, which is behind West Penn Hospital here. And the hospital earlier was on a restricted lockdown for a while. Right now, they're under controlled access for a time. Employees could only come or go from the emergency room area. There was security staff escorting some people to their vehicles. One of the folks just exiting the hospital right now is Ryan Parkinson. Describe for us, with all of this playing out here in the neighborhood, what things have been like inside the hospital today for those of you who have been here while all of this is happening and for a while on lockdown.
I mean, sure, it was tense to hear it at first. Everyone was concerned. Anyone would be alarmed when you hear of a situation like that, especially so close by. But luckily, with the lockdown and as the day went on, the Highmark police, they were very responsive, very responsible, and they protected us all well and calmed us all down. Specifically, the head of the Highmark police,
He looks like a mask wearer
here at West Penn, came in even on his day off just to assess the situation and keep everybody safe, and it was very reassuring.
And as I had mentioned, we had seen security staff escorting some people as they were leaving the hospital. What are your reflections on something like this happening in a city neighborhood and so close to this hospital and other hospitals?
I mean, it was alarming, especially with the proximity we are to other healthcare facilities. But the best thing to do, and the thing that we always do at the hospital, is just focus on the patients. Once we're kept safe and we know that we're okay there, we do what we always do. We focus on the patients. That's what we do every day, and today was no different.
Ryan, thank you for taking the time to stop and chat with us. We appreciate it. So there, a bit of the flavor of what was happening inside the hospital during the period when they were on a restricted lockdown and now under controlled access as the situation continues to play out. Reporting live in Friendship Park behind West Penn Hospital, Bob Mayo, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
All right, Bob, thank you. Today's developing situation obviously impacting all parts of the Garfield neighborhood today. We thank you very much. Now, we do want to show you this once again. The evacuation's underway with officers evacuating people from homes. This is the 4800 block of Broad Street. Now, people inside are being told to shelter in place, then call 911 to identify your location and your address. From there, officers will then enter the area and guide you to safety. And Pittsburgh Regional Transit is diverting bus routes in that area this afternoon. We're told 88 Penn is on detour and is not offering Penn Avenue stops from Friendship to Nagley. Now, once again, Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani has been on the ground all afternoon long. She's live near the scene right now. And Marcy, we're getting a listen to some of the recent gunfire that you heard live when you were there as this all unfolded.
Yeah, that gunfire, we actually timed it. It was about a minute. We crouched a little bit behind our vehicles. It was about a block and a half from where we are. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that gunfire from just a short time ago.
That's rifle rounds. Somebody got a big old gun in there. Like a 308 in there.
That and it was long, and it was an exchange, what appeared to be an exchange of gunfire. Now that followed what my source says were flashbangs sent in and then gas, and we were able to smell the gas in the area. We are right near North Millville. Let's take a look. I'm going to move out of the way so you can actually see behind us. Lots of police still in place here and sort of behind the homes. I have heard, though, from my source shortly after that exchange of gunfire that the suspect may have been shot but was still shooting, that he was in the bathroom, and that they were going to be sending a robot up to the second floor to see if he had been injured or what his condition is. So at this point, I'm still waiting for my source to let me know what they were able to find, but obviously very active here, still on the scene. My source said every SWAT team in Western Pennsylvania is here. We know the state police are here, armored vehicles, lots of police here. on the scene, still trying to assess whether the suspect is inside. He had been shooting, I'm going to guess, at least 1,000 rounds were fired out here throughout the day. You heard those most recent ones. We haven't heard any since. So as soon as we get a little more information on what that robot discovers inside the home, we'll let you know. We do know, though, from my source that the suspect shot and took out 3 drones during the course of the day.
Wow.
So at this point, we haven't heard any additional gunfire since what we heard there.
Maybe shooting a
So we're waiting to
shotgun?
get an update on his condition, and we'll let you know that as soon as we have it. For now, I'll send it back to you.
Mercy, thank you very much. Terrifying scene unfolding in Garfield this afternoon with those shots being fired.
Just hearing that, and again, that was just one spurt of the gunfire. This had taken place multiple times throughout the day. And the only word that comes to my mind is war zone. I mean, that's what it sounded like out there.
And also the incredible law enforcement presence. I mean, we saw the SWAT vehicles, we saw the Rook, which is the vehicle that rams the door to try and enter.
One of you guys mentioned the possibility of this ending in fire. Man, that's going to be a tough one for them unless the ATF is there, of course, because this is an apartment complex or an apartment that's in the middle of about, it looked like 8 or 10. Well, you see them right there. There's about 8 or 10 connected that share walls. That building on your right-hand side is the building we're talking about. So a little ways down is where the brother is in the house right now. And again, you probably got 8 or 10 units that are all joined. Again, I know the ATF wouldn't have a problem burning this down along with all the innocent people, but local law enforcement isn't known for doing that like the ATF is. So this may be a difficult one for them to just torch the entire building. Again, if somebody would actually say that this guy has a, I don't know, maybe a force reset trigger or a stabilizing brace, then the ATF would swoop in and just burn the whole block down. But nevertheless, this is some pretty good reporting from the local affiliate right now, even though it's a little bit stupid. They are providing some information, just not gun related.
Was that footage coming from Sky 4?
And let's not forget that dramatic rescue we saw of the neighbor from a home, as obviously the SWAT team was there trying to protect that neighbor from being hit by any kind of gunfire. We saw that live as it unfolded. In fact, you were right here when it happened. Just remarkable. But that, once again, Sky 4 bringing those images, sharing that story from a view that you rarely see in a situation quite like this.
Right. And there was a moment there where it was a little bit unclear if that person coming out was actually in the house, if they were a hostage, or if they were a neighbor. And then we did come to learn later they were a neighbor, and we heard a lot of gunfire as that individual was taken out of the home and put in the back of the armored truck. And we understand now that police were firing at the home as cover, and they had their shields up, and they got that person out of the home and put him in the back of the SWAT car.
It really stops your heart watching that all unfold and seeing it live right here on Pittsburgh's Action News 4. You know, we're coming up, it's about 4:21 right now, so this has been going on for about 6 hours.
Yeah, they went to serve that eviction notice to Bill Hardison at about 10:30 this morning. And I do believe we have his photo we can show you as well if you're just joining us. A look at the suspect, Bill Hardison. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Paul Van Osdal has been covering this part of the story. He is live near the scene. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to get to Paul here in a moment with more on the suspect's background, but we also have our Ashley Zilka, who is out there live. And Ashley, we know you spoke with some of the family members of the suspect here.
That's right. You know, they've been out here. I haven't seen them in quite some time, but I'd say about an hour ago, 3 of them at least were out here. They were very distraught, obviously wanting to talk to the suspect, but not having any luck. But also, this is a spot here on Penn Avenue where a lot of the neighborhood has been gathering, also looking for answers. And I want to bring in Jordan. Jordan, I talked to you a few hours ago. You are still out here. What has it been like right now?
I mean, it's been harrowing. I mean, after the first few rounds of gunfire, it was really scary. And then, you know, it just seems like it keeps coming and coming. And, you know, I must have been here for, just like you, 7 or 8 rounds of gunfire. And, you know, I heard that they threw some tear gas in there, and hopefully, you know, that would have sort of suppressed the situation. But then I heard even more gunfire. So it's just such a harrowing situation. I just really hope that it resolves soon.
Take me back to earlier this morning, if our viewers were not watching. I know we were talking, and how did you first get down here? What happened to your friend? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So about 11 a.m., I got the updates from Pittsburgh Public Safety on Twitter that there was an active situation up here. And I said, oh my God, that's right up here, right by the cemetery. So I started calling a few friends of mine, neighbors in the area, and just tried to make sure that they were safe. A friend of mine was actually walking through the cemetery and heard some of these initial gunshots ring out, and so he sheltered in place behind one of the mausoleums, and you know, he had to stay there for a good 10 or 15 minutes before this gunfire had suppressed. So, I mean, it's just so crazy to see this in this neighborhood.
I should say Penn Avenue. It's tons of businesses, restaurants, childcare. Just kind of unbelievable to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show that it could happen anywhere. And I heard that even the president has been briefed on this. And so, this must be a very
I'm sure that's real helpful,
even on a national level.
Jordan, thank you so much for talking with us tonight. Please be safe. I appreciate it. So yes, this is what we're hearing from a lot of people in the neighborhood, just pure shock and stories of just hiding from that gunfire. Earlier today, we were on Broad Street, and I can tell you, Marcy has been telling you just how many gunshots we heard where people were either evacuated from the scene or hiding behind houses and cars. So a scary situation still unfolding here. And this on Penn Avenue, a place where some of the community members are gathering, waiting to see if they could go back into their homes. Back to you guys.
Ashley, let me ask you, you said earlier that you saw some of the suspects' family members in that area walking by. I don't know if you give us a sense of what they were saying or the look they had. Obviously, this is something that's taken them by surprise as well, I would imagine.
Andrew, it was really heartbreaking. We saw several family members here, and obviously, of course, very distraught. At one point, the nephew of the suspect, he just collapsed on the floor crying. They want answers as well. I know we saw counselors out here as well, talking to them, trying to calm them down. But they've been out here all day long, too, just trying to hope that this all ends peacefully.
All right.
They're trying to bury the Republican debate tonight with this.
Something that we've talked about throughout the day was communication coming from Pittsburgh Public Safety. Their last tweet was just about 2 hours ago, but then about 9 minutes ago, they put out a tweet saying the scene remains active and ongoing. Updates will be provided when available, and they're asking for everyone's patience until the conclusion of this incident. So we're getting a little bit of communication there. Not any new information. They're just asking folks to be patient.
It is a developing situation and changing by the moment. So obviously, when they have new information, we're hoping to hear from them as well, because I don't think they've had an actual press briefing today. I think it was State Police that I think had something.
Yeah. A lot of different agencies working together. I know Marcy told us every SWAT team in Western Pennsylvania is now on scene, just to kind of put in perspective their response this afternoon.
Of course, we've been speaking with neighbors all afternoon about what they've been seeing, what they've been feeling. We want to share with you now some of their perspective on this unfolding and very scary situation.
This is a very good neighborhood. We have very good people here, so something like this don't happen at all.
All right, guys, real
Just
quick,
to know that.
I'm going to kill that audio. Just to give you guys a quick update, and my son is behind me, so my apologies for the potential mess behind me, because you might hear something. My son's a nut. But a couple things. Okay, just to recap how we got here, because the situation is not being explained other than that one moment about 30-45 minutes ago. It appears, hey buddy, it appears that the hang on buddy. It appears that the owner of the home originally, who owned it, passed away. His brother was living in the home. And it sounds like possibly the brother either wasn't taking care of it or something like that, because the dad was willed the house whenever the other son passed away. So the dad now owned the home, and the other brother, who did not pass away, is living in it. Sounds like the one who was living in the house was not taking care of it, was not paying for it, whatever. They didn't elaborate on that. They just mentioned that the dad then sold it, and they're saying this now. I'm not saying this. They're saying the dad sold it for like $25,000, which is unheard of even for a little place like that. 25 grand, sold it to a real estate agency. The real estate agency apparently picked up on it, where the other brother who lived was still living in it. He was not paying. He was delinquent in his payments for, it sounded like they said, 5 months. At the end of the 5 months, they've been trying to get him to leave. So they were serving an eviction notice this morning with law enforcement. When they got there, the brother started shooting at them. Now, think of it this way. If the brother who is living there thinks that he is the rightful owner, which I don't know how he is, if that backstory is true, but if that brother thinks that he is the rightful owner, and he thinks the government or someone else is coming in there to evict him from what he rightfully owns, if he truly believes he owns that, I'm not justifying it, but I understand why he would do that. Because if the state or somebody came to my house, which I own, and tried to remove me, we might have a similar condition. I'm not saying that. That's a hypothetical. That's not going to happen, hopefully. But again, if this brother thinks he is the rightful owner, I understand why he did what he did. Again, please understand, I'm not justifying it. I'm telling you where his mind is. And look, he's an old gentleman anyway. His mind might not be all there. So he may actually believe that he is the rightful owner of this, which could set some of this off. Now, I don't know what the gun laws are in Pittsburgh or in the state of Pennsylvania. I don't know what they are. I don't know how strict they are. Don't really care, to be honest with you. But that's how we got to this point. Now, they think at this point that the shooter may be injured or dead in a bathroom inside the home. As you see, this is a home that shares walls with a slew of other apartments on each side of it. Doesn't look like the greatest neighborhood either. So hopefully they don't burn the place down, because if they're sending tear gas and things like that in there, unless they're pulling an ATF and trying to burn it down on purpose, like in Waco, as we know, some of these devices can set a home on fire. So nevertheless, I just wanted to give you guys that. I won't go back to their live feed, but they're not doing a really good job of explaining how we got here. I wanted you guys to know that, who are new popping in right now.
On the ground from all those bullets and all that shooting going on. And once again, Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani is there. We're going to check in with her in a little bit. She's working her sources to find out what's going on inside that home right now, where they sent. Actually, and we'll check with her in just a moment. Right now, let's turn our attention to more on the suspect. We're joined by Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Paul Van Osdol, live now near the scene. Of course, Paul, you heard all that gunfire while you were giving your report during that time around 3:15. What do you have to share with us right now?
Yeah, well, it's quiet right now, Andrew, and but yeah, you're right. There was quite a bit of gunfire earlier. As Marcy pointed out, it was a good minute of just solid shots, and we haven't really heard anything since then. I want to talk a little bit about the suspect, William Hardison, and the background that led to this eviction today. The property that he's in was owned by his brother. Now, his brother died last year, and when his brother died, he passed along the property to their father. There was no will, but the courts decided that the father was next in line, so he inherited this property, and then he sold that property back in February to a local real estate company, and they are the ones who basically forced out William Hardison. He started squatting in the property. He never really had any legal right to live there, but he was squatting there. And I just talked in the last few minutes to a lawyer for that real estate company, and he tells me that Hardison posted some real angry language on the door when they tried to approach him to evict him, and that's why they had to go to the courts. He also tells me that 2 weeks ago, neighbors reported that Hardison had brought in 2 large cans of gasoline into the house. They called the police, and the police went out and did a welfare check, but nobody responded. So there was that concern as well, in addition to whatever firearms Hardison might have had. So the eviction went through the courts, and he was to be served, according to court records, this morning at 10:30. And it was shortly after that that we started hearing the gunfire, and this whole standoff began, which goes on to this moment. And earlier today, we spoke with William Hardison's brother, who has been trying to reach out, or I'm sorry, we spoke to his son, who's been trying to reach out to him, and has also been speaking with police negotiators to try to communicate to him his concern for Hardison's health and well-being and his family. I also spoke to Hardison's former attorney, who represented him in several cases, were mainly minor cases involving police, but he claims that Hardison is a follower of this, it's called Moorish sovereign immunity. It's a belief that civil authorities have no control over him. And so even when the police would try to stop him for a traffic stop, he refused to surrender. And that's how he got into trouble a couple times. And that's all of that led up to what we've been dealing with for the past several hours. Andrew?
You did touch on that, the fact that Hardison does have a criminal history. In fact, dating back and reading your investigation, your very thorough investigation done very quickly today, obviously, given how little time you had to work on it, going back to 2001. Is that right?
That's right, Andrew. Now, he has never actually been sentenced to prison time. His most recent case was about a year ago, and it was he pled guilty to unlawfully carrying a firearm, and he was sentenced to probation for that. He's had a number of other scrapes, some drug charges, simple assault. This goes back again, about 20 years, and he's 63 years old. So it goes back then to the early 2000s, actually to the late 1990s, Andrew.
And Paul, I just want to have you talk about this for a moment. For anyone that is just joining us, I know you spoke with his son on the phone. His son was attempting to get in contact with him through the negotiator. Do you know if that ever came to be?
We've not heard back from him. I spoke to his son's wife a couple hours ago, and he said at that time his son was communicating with police negotiators. Now, we don't know where that went, if he, William Hardison Jr., the son in Atlanta, who's based in Atlanta, if he actually spoke with his father or not. But I do know that he was speaking with police negotiators as of a couple hours ago, and where that went, we're not sure right now.
All right, Paul Van Osdol live for us in Garfield this afternoon with his investigation of the suspect in this standoff this afternoon, which continues in Garfield this afternoon. Once again, Paul, thank you very much.
Okay, we want to go to another one of our reporters who's been out on the ground all day for us in this situation. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Ashley Zilka. She's standing by now. Ashley, you've been talking to folks out there. Have you learned anything new from where you are?
This will be useless.
No, I think really the big thing is just everyone is shocked right now. They didn't expect this to go on for this.
Okay, so she's got nothing right now. And I don't have anything, it sounds like, either. Anything more to add to this. I will say this, okay. I'm not, as you guys know, a, quote, conspiracy theorist. I try not to be. I think this is a little bit unusual that something like this lasts for this long. There's one man, and there's 8 gazillion law enforcement officers. They're burning 5 gazillion pounds or gallons of gasoline probably an hour. I mean, nobody's complaining about that in these liberal-run cities and states and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, they're spending all this money for one guy. Personally, guys, you don't need 500 police units parked outside this guy for one guy. In fact, he's got one way in and one way out. At worst, there's a group of apartments there. You can position people on all 4 sides, and he's not going anywhere unless he tunnels through the ground or flies through the air. They did say he shot 4 drones down, so that tells me the guy, unless he's a freaking crack shot, he's probably got a shotgun that he's shooting with. Maybe that's what he was shooting at them with. Maybe that's what no law enforcement was hit. And, it's possible. I mean, if he had a rifle of some sort, I would imagine if he shot that many times, I know he didn't shoot the full 1,000. I'm just saying, if he had shot in that battle or firefight with them, you have some kind of a chance of hitting somebody. Shot with a shotgun, and no matter how, depending on how far away it is, it's likely not going to be anything lethal or whatever. And again, going back to the drones, if he shot the drones down, my guess is he probably has. I'm sure they got the drones close to windows trying to peek inside. He probably shot them. Maybe he shot them with his rifle. I'm not saying it can't be done, but he did shoot 4 down. That's pretty freaking impressive, if you ask me. So it does sound like this is an odd situation. I have to draw the conclusion that we have the GOP debate, and the GOP frontrunner who is not going to be at the debate is Donald Trump, and he's being interviewed by Tucker Carlson tonight. So you have 2, according to Republicans, very big events happening tonight. Again, your GOP frontrunner being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, probably one of the hottest interviewers or media personalities out there, at the same time while the GOP debate is taking place, and this happens. And so far, we're going on over 6 hours of this taking place. It almost sounds like they don't want you to watch the Trump interview or the debates tonight. Again, I'm not telling you that is being handled by somebody and they're doing this. I'm just telling you a little bit odd timing here. The odd timing gets to be less odd the more frequently it happens, and this looks really weird. Again, we're talking about one man. We're talking about thousands of rounds. We're talking about nobody shot. This guy does not seem like a freaking crack shot mastermind that we should be having all of this law enforcement and all of this effort. How many times do they do these no-knock warrants to people who are considered armed and dangerous, and they can kick the door and they can go in and get the person? I mean, seriously, you hear about it all the time. they'll go into rough neighborhoods, bad neighborhoods, or wherever, and there's somebody who they assume is a very dangerous suspect, and they bust the door in knowing that the person knows they're there, and a SWAT team goes in and they take the person out. I'm not telling them how to do their job. That's not my wheelhouse. I don't know any of that, but it just kind of perplexes me how we're allowing this situation to go on like it is without kicking the door down, especially the amount of time that we've gone so far. Nobody's been shot outside the home. Nobody's been injured outside the home. I think they said one law enforcement guy was injured. You know what it probably is? Sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody. It's probably a fat guy that stumbled over his feet and probably got a boo-boo or something like that. Nobody's been shot outside the apartment complex. So the amount that they're at least implying that this guy is some kind of just massive danger. If there were 55 law enforcement agents, officers who had been shot, and 25 of them were laying dead in the street, and they were trying to pull them out of the way of danger and all that, I could kind of get that. None of them have been shot. And again, one guy's been injured, probably unrelated completely to the situation, probably stumbled, fell down, fell out of his car, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, this seems like a massive effort for the amount of danger that they are in right now. And I just don't understand it. I've seen multiple times. You can Google and find gazillions of home invasions by the law enforcement officers out there who are breaking into a home where they know a person is a violent person. They expect to be engaged with gunfire, and they do it. Yet this guy lets this drag on for going on 7 hours with this. Just saying, guys, I will leave this on for now because this is a pretty good live coverage. I know they're repeating themselves and saying a lot of BS. Their gun stuff is completely stupid. One of the guys, the reporter that looks like Samuel L. Jackson, made the comment earlier, can you tell us about the gunfire and how big they were? I don't understand how you quantify how big a gunfire is. I think he was talking about the size of the caliber. So again, from a firearms standpoint, these people are completely clueless. I agree with what some of you guys said earlier, that there was a lot of echo with the gunshots, with the rounds cracking in between the buildings and echoing, bouncing off of it. So I think it made it look like it was a little bit worse. But nevertheless, I think that the coverage is pretty consistent here in Pittsburgh. Again, this is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure what the gun laws are. I apologize for that, but I just went straight to the story when I pulled this up earlier. So my apologies for not knowing those gun laws. I will look at them. I'm about to go tend to my son for one quick second. I'm going to leave this up so you guys can look at it. I'm coming, buddy. And then what we're going to do is I'll come back and try to get a little bit of bring you guys back up to speed, or maybe you bring me back up to speed. So I'm going to jet out of here for one quick second, guys. There's my son.
hundreds, if not thousands, of rounds of gunfire.
Now, police even calling
guys,
for more throughout the
volume
course of
back
the
on. My
day.
apologies
Some of that
for that.
gunfire was continuous, and neighbors have shared with us what they heard and what they saw.
My apologies on that, guys. This is just footage from earlier today when all this was taking place. We're going on 7 hours of this shooting so far. Quick update that they think the guy is either dead or injured in his bathroom of the apartment.
Absolutely terrifying. Not just the gunfire, but the sound of it, how long it went on. Of course, we continue to follow this tense situation, but just imagine actually living in that neighborhood in a place that's very quiet most days, suddenly erupting in gunfire.
At the very beginning of that video clip, you saw a police officer escorting someone who likely lived in that vicinity away from their home, just ducking, not even knowing where the gunfire was coming from. And you can just feel the fear. Absolutely terrifying out there. Right now, we want to bring in Pittsburgh's Action News 4 producer, Gabby.
How do they make this about gun control? How are they going to spin this?
Gabby, I know you were kind of there at the beginning, so tell us what your experience was throughout the day and what you're hearing right now.
Yeah, Kelly and Andrew, right now it's pretty quiet from what it was earlier. We just actually saw at least 3 members of the SWAT team start to walk up toward where I am, which is the opposite way of where Penn Avenue is, and went up the corner, maybe back toward where the house is actually located. But about an hour ago is probably the last round of shots that we heard fired. And that went on back and forth for probably a minute and a half. Was definitely the loudest over the last 5 or so hours that we've heard. And definitely a very, very scary situation.
Well, Gabby, it's good to know that you are safe. We do want to ask you, I mean, you live there and you actually have not been able to get to Channel 4 today because of all this unfolding. So if you can kind of take us through your day, what you experienced when you first knew something was going on and what happened from that point moving forward.
Right. So at first this morning, we just heard a bunch of sirens going down the street, which living around a bunch of hospitals, unfortunately that isn't something out of the norm. But then pretty quickly after that, you hear the shots being fired, and then what we now know was probably flashbangs and other devices that were being used. But this has been going on for hours, like we have said and reported, and throughout the day now, maybe so that more neighbors are coming home from work. They're also now confused. They're trying to get around any roadblocks and just watching this scene unfold. And people, I'm also hearing from people who, may have known the gentleman who was in the at the time, and they're just hoping for the best outcome possible. But we have to wait and see what happens with police and everything, and then but maybe hopefully soon.
So obviously this situation throughout the day has had an ebb and a flow to it. Like we mentioned, those shots that were fired, I believe it was in the 3 o'clock hour, that long stretch for a minute was while Paul Van Osdal was giving us a look into the suspect's history that we heard that Gabby was just referring to. What is the scene? What is the feeling right now? Are you getting a more relaxed feel? You said officers were walking in the other direction. What do you make of that?
So it's quiet, but where I'm at, I'm also, at a very safe, is what I assume and hope, distance where police have us blocked off. But I'm now seeing at least one
I agree that
SWAT
they will ask the
officer
candidates
leaning
about this
around
tonight
the corner
at
of
the
the
GOP
home
debate.
with a gun drawn. I can't see around the corner, so I'm not sure what he's pointing at or what's happening behind the street, actually back a block from where I'm at. But before, earlier in the day, it seemed that there were just a couple SWAT officers waiting in their vehicles, maybe under a tent. But now it looks like they're all lined up on the sidewalk on Matilda Street, going on to Broad Street.
That has to be so unsettling, Gabby. I can't even begin to imagine. I did want to ask you, I mean, many of our viewers have never been to the Garfield neighborhood. You live there, and obviously we don't want this incident today to define that neighborhood. So what is Garfield like normally when something like this is not taking place?
honestly, it's a quiet neighborhood. You know, people walk down the street, people wave to each other, say hi, and you honestly move on with your day. We're on the street that I live on. You know, it doesn't seem that there's anything that ever really happens. And then there are a bunch of businesses right on Penn that you can walk to from this neighborhood. They are also welcoming, and coffee shops and everything. It's, for the most part, from my experience over the last 2.5 years living here, I haven't seen anything like this. And people who I've talked to over the last few hours who have lived here for multiple years say they've never seen or heard anything like this in this area.
Okay. All right, Gabby, thank you for your perspective. And definitely we don't want, to speculate. That's not where I was going with that. I was just trying to get a feel of the neighborhood, but we are still waiting on word from authorities after that last, what sounded like a shootout, flashbangs possibly deployed in the mix of gunfire as well. What happened? So what is the latest right now? Is the suspect alive? Is the suspect injured? Is the suspect still shooting at officers? We do not have that information yet. So that is what we are waiting on to see where this is going to proceed as the evening unfolds.
And we know that Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani is on scene right now working her sources. She's done a fantastic job all afternoon, and we will hopefully get some word from her as to where things stand at this moment and moving forward. So we will stay on top of this, of course, and continue to bring you the very latest from all angles on this developing situation in Garfield.
Okay, it sounds like we have Marcy. Oh, I'm sorry. Kaylee? We have Kaylee Gunderson, who just got to the scene now as well. Let's check in with her. Kaylee, where are you and what are you seeing from your vantage point?
So Kelly, Andrew, I'm just about a block away from where that home is and around the corner. So if you zoom in here with us, you can see, a crowd of SWAT officers. They're gathered at the corner of Broad Street.
That is ridiculous.
Just a block
right
over
there.
to our left is where that house is. This is really the visual that Gabby, our producer Gabby, was just describing for you guys a few minutes ago on the phone. You can see that officer that she described there on the corner, guns drawn. We just watched the Rook go down an alley just a few homes closer to us in our direction. So, it's difficult to see in some parts here because there are so many police cruisers here and so many moving parts. But that Rook loaded with officers actually just drove down the alley.
25, 30
Unclear,
SWAT
exactly what
one
the
man,
next step
all
is
piled in
for
front
it.
of one
But
porch.
such an active scene here. And again, you can see those
So
officers
stupid.
lining that building just above Broad Street, looking down towards the home where that
And they
gunfire
probably
has
wonder
been
why
coming
their
from.
streets are
That's
shit.
the scene here. We're working, of course, to get any
No tax
updates we
dollars for
can
anything
on
else.
what their next steps are. Shannon, Andrew.
Before you go, we do want to ask you, you've just arrived on scene. So as you were coming up to this location, can you tell us the scene around there right now? I mean, what people are doing? Are they staying around? Are they walking to other places? I mean, what exactly are they doing as they wait for the situation to resolve?
So, Andrew, Shannon, we're actually being moved back a little bit right now. So pardon kind of the chaos here. But yeah, we've just been told to move back. To answer your question, though, there are a lot of people here just kind of gathering here at times to see, because this is such a visual street corner where you can really get a glimpse into the operations of people. Okay, they want us to change the camera angle away. So we are going to point completely in the opposite direction here to respect what law enforcement officers are asking us to do. But yes, to answer your question, this has been a very crowded street corner at times for people to come and just get a glimpse of what's going on. Clearly, they.
So don't film 25 SWAT agents in front of one house down the road from where the suspect is. Because if the suspect knows, he might be able to escape, because clearly nobody else is anywhere else. That's unbelievable.
Let you get set where you guys need to get set. In the meantime, we're going to go to Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani. Marcy, you've done such a great job for us today, kind of being our eyes and our ears out there and getting information from your sources. What is the latest we're hearing about the suspect?
Well, Kelly, I actually just within the last couple of seconds got a text from a source here who tells me that officers did make entry and the suspect has been confirmed deceased on the scene. That is from
Suspect
my
is dead.
source, who says officers have gone in within the last few minutes. They were attempting to send a robot in, but the robot was having some sort of issues. I'm not clear on what that
why were
was.
those
The
guys wanting
suspect
them
was
not to
on the
film them? 'Cause they
second
looked
floor in a
stupid?
bathroom,
They knew
from
the
what
guy
I
was dead.
understand. And it was after that last exchange of gunfire that things sort of stopped and they thought that he might be injured or deceased. But my sources tell me that officers did go inside that apartment, that home, and did find him deceased just a couple of seconds ago. I got confirmation of that from my source. Now, this is a situation that, as you know, has been going on since 10:30 this morning. We clearly heard about 1,000 shots fired out here. We know that gas was sent in, flashbangs were sent in. Officers could be heard on loudspeaker trying to negotiate, trying to ask the suspect to surrender. You can still see behind me some officers stationed here. What you're looking at here is about a block up from where this took place along Broad Street, starting at around 10:30 this morning, when sheriff's deputies came here to serve an eviction on the suspect, who sources say then did open fire. So once again, I am told from my sources that this has come to a resolution, that officers have found the suspect deceased inside that home. That is the very latest from Garfield. Reporting live, Marcy Cipriani, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Okay, Marcy, so it seems like the community perhaps can take a bit of a breath if this active threat is now over. This is something that has been going on for now approaching 7 hours. It started at about 10:30 this morning when sheriff's deputies were attempting to serve Bill Hardison, a 63-year-old man, an eviction notice from a home that he believed that he was entitled to. Our Paul Van Osdal has been reporting on the background of this. It sounds like there was some bad blood within the family and some confusion as to the true ownership of the home. And that is how this whole situation unfolded, beginning at 10:30 this morning. And as Marcy Cipriani is just telling us from her police sources, the suspect is dead inside of the home, that suspect being Bill Hardison, 63 years old.
And of course, still a lot of questions to be answered. And we're hoping to hear from law enforcement sometime over the next hour or so to sit down with us and talk to us via press conference as to how this all unfolded, what took place, their view of what happened, including involving Mr. Hardison and his reason for getting involved in a standoff and a shootout with police. So we are waiting for all that information. Of course, we will be following it right here on Pittsburgh's Action News 4. We're going to continue our live team coverage of this unfolding situation. But once again, Marcy Cipriani, according to her sources, indicating the suspect is now deceased, and that once again, neighbors can take a pause, a breath, and at least begin.
Okay, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, they're saying at this point that the suspect is deceased. So we've got 5 gazillion armed law enforcement officers and 10 gazillion vehicles out there burning gas. So I'm going to turn the audio for this back on so you can see it, just in case they were wrong. But the reports are at this point that the suspect is deceased in his home. So I will leave it on here for a split second. Once we can confirm that, then I'll get out of here and not waste you guys' time. But it does sound like the suspect might be dead. They don't have official confirmation from law enforcement, but they're getting unofficial confirmation on that.
To convey to him how important it was, not only to them, but to Hardison's grandchildren, that he surrender to police and get out of there. They were really, really concerned. Obviously, as his family members, they said he's had a bit of a history with police, but he was not someone who they expected to end up like this. They were just very, very concerned, and they were in communication. His son was in communication with police negotiators after speaking to me in an effort, again, to try to reach through to him to get him to surrender. So we have not spoken to him, obviously, since we're just hearing about this, but clearly the family's got to be very distraught about all this.
All right, Paul Van Osdal for us live in Garfield with the news. Once again, according to Marcy Cipriani and her source, the shooter inside the house, the suspect, Bill Hardison, age 63, is now deceased.
And we want to tell you that Pittsburgh's Action News 4 continues, our 4 o'clock news.
I do want to point out real quick, guys, that I'm going to go back in here from just a little while ago, and I'm going to pull the screenshot that they asked the news teams to get their cameras off of. They didn't want them filming this. There's about 2 or 3 dozen armed SWAT guys all piled out in front of one apartment as the robot goes down the street. You got to see it. Again, they asked the news team to please take that off of there, so they wouldn't be filming that. So anyway, I'm going to go back to their live coverage, guys.
And I can't.
A neighborhood left stunned.
It's just so surreal to hear it, like, somewhere that you regularly hang out and just, frequent.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 begins with breaking news.
Let's go ahead and get to that breaking news. An active shooter in a Pittsburgh neighborhood, a police source telling us that now the suspect is dead. The very latest right now. I'm Shannon Perrine.
I'm Andrew Stockey. Gunfire ringing out in Garfield for hours.
That is just a very small piece of what's been going on all day today. Here is what we know at this hour. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 has learned the suspect's name is William Hardison. Again, a police source tells us that he is now dead. Court records show that an eviction for Hardison was scheduled at the address on Broad Street in Garfield, which is at the epicenter of this active shooter situation, which has now ended. The public is being asked to avoid still the 4800 block of Broad Street and North Matilda Street.
And we do have live team coverage of all this for you tonight.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani has been there all day long, guiding us through this with information all day long. Marcy, leading us off here at 5 o'clock with the very latest news that you have learned that the suspect in this case is dead.
Yeah, my source tells me that the suspect is dead, that officers went inside to confirm that. And right now they are sending in medics and crime scene detectives headed right now into the scene. Now, this ended shortly after we heard about a minute's worth of gunfire. That is, I can't tell you how many times during the day we heard that gunfire. But after that, what sounded like an exchange of gunfire, that's when things sort of settled down. It got a little bit quieter. We haven't heard from the suspect since. My source said they were sending in a robot to check, but the robot had some sort of issues. According to my source, the suspect was on the second floor in a bathroom. So they did end up sending officers in. You can still see, though, lots of police present here. The road's still blocked off. This is Kincaid near North Millvale. So just one block over, at just down a block and over a block is where this took place, starting at 10:30 this morning. According to sheriff's deputies, they came to serve an eviction notice, were greeted by gunfire. We know one sheriff's deputy was injured. We're told, though, by the sheriff that that deputy was not shot and is doing okay. Since then, we have seen dozens of police here, SWAT teams from all over Western Pennsylvania. And once again, my source has said that they have confirmed the suspect, now deceased, inside the home after hours of shooting at police. This happened, as I mentioned, right around 10:30 this morning and came to a conclusion, according to my source, within the last 30 minutes or so. Reporting live in Garfield, Marcy Cipriani, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
All right, Marcy, thank you so much for that. And we have been following this story all day long since this first broke. And we know that there are so many family members of the suspect, the shooter in this case, who were pleading and trying to get him to surrender, turn himself in peaceably. And that did not happen today. That did not end this resolution of this active shooter situation. Our reporters have been out on the streets. Our photographers have been out in the streets in this neighborhood all day, Andrew.
And they've done a fantastic job sharing this story, very difficult story to tell with our viewers. That includes Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Ashley Zilko, who joins us live now. And Ashley, we spoke a little bit earlier. You saw the family of William Hardison walking by you. What was their reaction before all this? And obviously with the news now that he is deceased.
You know, Andrew, right now it's really quiet, but like you mentioned, several family members were out here. I first saw them on Broad Street, and now a few hours later, I saw them here on Penn, and they were obviously very distraught, emotional. I know the nephew of the suspect, he just fell to the ground at one point crying about his Uncle Bill, is what he called him. Right now, though, it's pretty quiet out here. A lot of the neighborhood has gone, probably a lot because of the weather, but there were community members here throughout the day. Some of them were people that actually had to evacuate that lived on Broad Street. I know I've been saying this over and over again, but they actually had to shelter in place, call 911, give their address, and then police came, got them, rescued them safely, as well as other people who just decided to stay in the neighborhood, but they did take cover. Obviously, a lot of law enforcement still here, but some officers we can see are coming away from the scene and back up here to their vehicles. We did talk, like I mentioned, with a lot of people in the neighborhood. Take a listen to what one woman had to tell me.
This happened this may be going for maybe a year. It just got worse and worse and worse.
And that's what we've been hearing from a lot of residents here, just devastation and obviously heartbreaking. Like I mentioned, though, a lot of them have gone home for the day, but a lot of shock and disbelief out here. Back to you.
All right, actually, Zilka live for us in Garfield this afternoon. Obviously, a mix of emotions going on right there. The family obviously devastated at the loss of William Hardison, but obviously that neighborhood just still reeling from what took place today. But thank goodness no one was hurt.
Right. Well, we want to go back and talk a little bit about that. We know that initially on the scene, a sheriff's deputy did sustain a head injury diving for cover when he attempted to serve that warrant. That's when the gunfire started about 10:30 this morning. That sheriff's deputy, very lucky to be alive, according to the sheriff, Kevin Krause, telling us that today. So, and we will hopefully get more information about his recovery.
Right.
He's expected to be.
Again, it sounds like this is over with. I will probably leave this up for another, I don't know, I'll call it 10 minutes in case something else develops out of this. It does appear that everything is over with. This is a very good point. Steel Wheels 99 says, what is amusing is the fact that this situation was titled as an active shooter when in all actuality it was merely an armed standoff with an exchange of fire. Yeah, I mean, I use their words. This was a title that, if you look at the title of this video, that's literally a copy and paste of what all the headlines have been. So they call it an active shooter. And you're right, it was an armed standoff. They are working on manipulating the wording to where everything points to gun owners being unhinged. In other words, you're going to sell a lot more ads whenever you call something an active shooter situation rather than an armed standoff. An armed standoff sounds boring, like this was. Where an active shooter sounds like there's a guy roaming through the neighborhood shooting indiscriminately at people. So yes, semantics matters. The words they use matter. I still believe that based on what you just said, that they're calling this an active shooter rather than an armed standoff was done on purpose. This would appear, even though it's not a big story, and it is a bigger story than what it really is, because guess what? We've got Tucker Carlson interviewing Donald Trump tonight, while at the same time the GOP debate is happening. Who controls the media? The wackos on the far left. This is being made a bigger deal out of than what it really is. We have one 63-year-old man who did not shoot anybody today. I want to make that very clear. We have a 63-year-old man that did not shoot a single person today. Nobody died except the shooter. Nobody was shot except the shooter. Or except actually the evictee, the person being evicted from the home. Technically, I don't even know if he shot at them first. I don't know that. The law enforcement people show up to there to evict this guy, and we don't know what led up to the event at that very moment. Who knows? Maybe they kicked the door in. He thought somebody was breaking into his property. Think about it, guys. If you in your mind believe that you have a reason to be at a particular place, and somebody kicks your door in the morning, you're sitting down, maybe in the bathroom, maybe sleeping. Somebody kicks your door in, already in a bad neighborhood. This was not a good neighborhood. I don't care anybody says this was a bad neighborhood. Kick your door in a bad neighborhood, which probably already has a high crime rate. What do? You probably shoot towards the door. In this case, these guys would have shot back. So let's be real about this. There's probably a whole lot of things that went wrong in this. Again, I am not justifying the guy in the apartment who was squatting, according to law reports in this place. I'm just saying there was an awful lot made out of this going on almost 7 hours when it wasn't anything more than a guy that was mad because he was being evicted from a home and law enforcement killed him and he shot no one. This is going to make me sound like a broken record, but I have to point this out again. He shot nobody. They're going to call this man a shooter on the news, right? They're going to refer to him the shooter in the house. They call him a suspect right here on the screen. Great, doing that. he'll be referred to as a shooter. You can best believe that. But he shot nobody. He wasn't intent on shooting anybody. I'm sure he did not wake up this morning thinking he was going to shoot people. He shot people who came into what he believed was his home. Again, not taking up for him. I'm just saying this will be painted as a picture that law-abiding Americans who own guns are bad people, crazy, and are likely to shoot at law enforcement for no particular reason. They're going to remove and eliminate and ignore the backstory here. This sounds like a story that usually the media would side with the guy in the apartment complex who was being evicted. But I think they're going to have more to gain by painting him as potentially a white supremacist who wants to shoot a whole bunch of people, and he shot at law enforcement, tied the streets of Pittsburgh up for almost 7 hours today. Again, this will bury the GOP thing tonight, and it will bury Donald Trump that's being interviewed or who's being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. Not completely. It's not going to go away. I'm just saying more people will be talking about stuff like this tonight because such a big deal has been made out of it. And again, they know this person is deceased, and look, they're still reporting. Look at all the guys. This is what I was telling you about earlier. I'm going to screenshot this. This is exactly what I said. Look at all the law enforcement guys who are piled up in front of this house. I'll share that screenshot later on today. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that there's that many guys that are all piled in front of that house right there. Anyway, I want you guys to know that this sounds like somewhat of a nothing burger. A guy being evicted in a really bad neighborhood, did not want to be evicted, and police shot and killed him in the home that he was trying to protect as his own. No justification for what he did, just telling you this was much more of a nothing burger. There was a whole lot worse situations that happened throughout the country. This is right down the road from the debates right there in Pittsburgh. So it's really grabbing a lot of people's attention, more notably on the East Coast, where that debate is being held. So this was, I think, the news coverage of this. I'm not saying that they made this situation happen, but the news coverage of this being bigger than what it needed to be was definitely on purpose. You can't convince me otherwise. This was blown out of proportion because it has the tendency to blur the lines when it comes to the real news that's happening tonight. And believe me, I'm not watching the debate. I'm not interested in that. And I'm not sure if I'm watching. I like Tucker Carlson, but I'm not sure if I want to watch another Trump interview. I've got other things to deal with. I will say this. At 6 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight, 6 p.m. Central Time, a brand new episode of HOAPD, which is the comedy show that I write and I take part in. That's going to air tonight on the HOAPD YouTube channel. I shared the link earlier. I'll share it again right now. The new episode is hilarious. You'll definitely want to check this out. Go to the HOAPD YouTube channel. The premiere is already up for that. It will play in an hour and 45 minutes. So almost 2 hours from now, the brand new HOAPD will come out, and it's funny. It's regarding garage doors and the stupidity of homeowners associations in neighborhoods. So go check it out if you get a chance, guys. I will leave this up. Let's see. It's 4:13 my time, Central Standard Time right now. I'll leave this up until 4:30. If no additional news comes out, I'll kill this because I don't want to bore you guys. But I want to leave it open for now so you guys can continue to talk, in the comment section, because I see a lot of conversation happening there. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'll be back here in about 15 minutes. Thanks, folks.
It goes on.
And this was not an isolated incident. In fact, Sharon, while you were on the air, this happened, I think, at the 3 o'clock hour. This happened multiple times throughout the course of the day from 10:30 on in that Garfield neighborhood.
And in that clip, it's not just what you hear, but what you see. You can visibly see police officer taking a young person to try to evacuate them to safety, and they have to duck into another house. It's terrifying. It's traumatizing for this community, and the people who lived through this today are going to be processing this for quite some time, knowing how close they were to danger, and the fact that this dangerous situation just did not let up for hours, maybe 6 hours throughout the day today. So the impact will be felt for some time. This is very fresh.
It was a long and exhausting day, but once again, the suspect is deceased, according to the sources of Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani. Now, as we've mentioned, that neighborhood, that part of Garfield, that Broad and North Matilda was impacted today, but certainly the area around it was impacted as well.
No doubt. And Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Bob Mayo has been in the Bloomfield area, which is another wonderful Pittsburgh City neighborhood right next door to Garfield, residential. So many, we talk about meds and eds in Pittsburgh. The meds is really centered there in Bloomfield, and then also not far away in Lawrenceville with Children's Hospital, Bob. This brought all the wonderful activity in these East End neighborhoods to a grinding halt today.
Yeah, right now where we stand, we're on the edge of a long, narrow city park, Friendship Park, here along Friendship Avenue, which is right behind Allegheny Health Network's West Penn Hospital. There was a period of time this afternoon where they were on a restricted lockdown. Employees coming and going were only allowed entry and exit through the emergency room. They're now operating under what they call a controlled access protocol with enhanced security, concern, care for the safety of patients here. Through the day, we've been talking with neighborhood residents, talking with employees of the hospital as people have been coming and going here, their reflections on what was happening both in the neighborhood and inside the hospital. Here's a sampling of some of what we heard.
You know what my thoughts are is getting so commonplace that I expect it to happen now. You know, I mean, this is just the closest that I've ever been, you know, as far as been close to a shooting. But you kind of expect it now, which from what's going on, you know, around the nation and in this city.
And then that a bit of the flavor, while there was some fear, some concern of the part of people in the community, there was also a sense of somber sadness from people about repeated incidents of gun violence and incidents such as this one that involved so many weapons. Reporting live in Friendship Park, the border between Garfield and Bloomfield behind West Penn Hospital, Bob Mayo, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Bob, thanks so much. We are continuing to get information from Pittsburgh Public Safety. We expect a briefing very soon from city officials on this situation today. So stay with us right here. And also know this, that we continue to follow all of the latest developments out of Pittsburgh's Garfield neighborhood. So for all the very latest, check on the air, on the mobile app, WTAE.com.
After over 6 hours of coverage, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back with Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 5 o'clock right after this.
Enjoy fun and relaxation for everyone in the family.
Louisiana, so many of our problems are rooted in a struggling education system. You want to fix crime? Fix education. You want to create jobs and opportunity to keep our families from moving? You've got to fix education. My plan respects teachers as professionals, empowers parents. They are the most important voice in a child's education, and it challenges all schools to do better, because no child should ever be stuck in a failing school.
We have enough flavor, style, and soul for 2 cities. Come see what we're made of. A little of this, a little of that, a whole lot of us.
Active and bold, courageous or dull, emotions that flow. It all starts in your gut. Naughty with pride, probiotics inside, excited, yummy, zing. From A to Z, your gut is where it all begins. Start with Activia with billions of probiotics.
The City Custom Cash Card automatically adjusts to your spending.
Hi.
You don't have to keep tabs on rotating categories.
This is the only rotating I care about.
It does the work for you. Earn cash back that automatically adjusts to your top eligible spend category with the City Custom Cash Card.
It's go time.
Sneak preview audiences are blown away by Gran Turismo. We're ready to bring this home. It's Rocky with race cars.
So we're already winning.
Don't sound so surprised. Gran Turismo, rated PG-13, in theaters Thursday.
Frisky's World, the perfect reminder that life's more fun in the deep end.
Yeah, so never stop exploring. Always keep it real.
And do whatever floats your boat, just like we do.
Feed their fantasy.
So your brand needs some digital marketing. Go to Fiverr. Get landing pages and social promotions. Done. For every step your business takes, Fiverr. Freelance services on demand.
Bound by their unique spirit, discover highest independent.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 5 o'clock continues with Pittsburgh's Action Weather as we take a live look at the save from our action cam. We're tracking the chance for storms that could have an impact in your neighborhood this evening.
That's why we want to hear from Pittsburgh's Action Weather Chief Meteorologist Mike Harvey with the timing of some of this bumpy weather that's coming in.
Yeah, well, we've had some light rain, a little bit of light rain that has moved through, but later tonight we are going to have some thunderstorms that could be stronger that'll be moving through, and we'll get the timing for you that here in just a second. Right now, just 69 degrees outside, wind southwest 8 miles per hour, much cooler than a normal high of 81 degrees. And as we take a look outside, most of what we're seeing right now is light rain that's moving across the region. Had a couple lightning strikes, but for the most part, pretty quiet and light rain moving in. That'll likely change as we head into tonight. Here is the rain that's light moving through now, but as we move it up to the north, you'll see what's crossing Lake Erie right now. Stronger thunderstorms that are moving in our direction. You can see this band that will be moving down. So as we head through tonight, likely 8, 9 o'clock, depending on where you're located, expect some thunderstorms to move in, possibly some heavy rain with this moving in as well. So here we are at 9 o'clock tonight with the potential for thunderstorms, some pockets of heavy rain and lightning moving into the area. It'll be with us into the early morning hours. And then as we go through the day on Thursday, most of the day is going to be dry. But again, we're going to repeat this as we go late into Thursday. We will have a chance for more rain showers moving in. Now, the heaviest of the rain is going to be closer to I-80. The further south you are, the less rain you're going to be seeing. And this is in the overnight period. This is until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. We do have a flood watch that will go into effect at 8 o'clock tonight. It will be in effect until Thursday at 11 a.m., but that is for areas from Pittsburgh up to the north. Tomorrow, low temperature, 67 degrees, mostly cloudy. Tomorrow, you are really going to notice a change. Humidity levels are really going to spike tomorrow. We'll have dew points way into the 70s. It'll be fairly uncomfortable outside tomorrow. Isolated showers early. We'll have the chance for thunderstorms as we go into tomorrow night again. Mostly cloudy, very humid. Showers and thunderstorms, especially the later we go into tomorrow night. It is going to be hot tomorrow, 87 degrees. You add in the humidity, it'll feel like it's well into the 90s for tomorrow. So we take a look at Friday, also very warm, 87 degrees. We'll have showers lingering into Friday. Saturday, a slight chance of rain, but most locations are dry, 82. Sunday looks nice, 79 degrees, partly cloudy skies, and we'll have another chance of rain early next week on Tuesday.
All right, Mike, thank you. And remember, when storms do roll in, make sure you've got the free WTAE mobile app ready to go. Instant alerts and the conditions in your neighborhood. Everything you need to know to keep you and your family safe.
Now to the community of Plum, paying their final respects to Borough Manager Mike Thomas. He was one of 6 people killed nearly 2 weeks ago in that deadly house explosion.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Lily Coleman with how he is being remembered today.
Dozens of neighbors lined the streets here in Plum a little earlier today, all to say one final thank you to Mike Thomas, a man who served this community for nearly 20 years.
A small gesture of thanks for a man who was larger than life.
Borough manager is a tough job, right? But he was a visionary, a builder. He got things done. And, for over 20 years, he's served this community very, very well.
Mike Thomas served the community of Plum as borough manager for nearly 2 decades. He was instrumental in the establishment of the borough's new municipal building, but he also volunteered behind the scenes.
Mike was always very supportive of us, including delivering Meals on Wheels for us as part of his participation in Plum Rotary.
Karen Hochberg is the director of the Plum Senior Community Center. She says Mike was a huge supporter of the center, volunteering his time and even teaching Italian classes here.
He could be counted on And that's a very important thing.
She spent last night painting signs in her kitchen so she and the rest of the folks at the senior center could give Mike a proper farewell.
People still have very heavy hearts. I mean, many of the people here at the center was touched. It's hard to stand there. I mean, I've only known him in the last 5 years, but people have known him and known his contributions for many, many years.
Their signs, a bright spot in an otherwise dark day, as the family and friends of Mike Thomas made their way from the funeral home to the church before Wednesday's funeral mass.
So it's tough, and we think so much about his family and his daughter. I mean, here's a man who was a public servant and gave so much, and is not going to get to enjoy all the fruits of his labor and see wonderful milestones of his family. That's where our hearts are heavy.
And there are still a number of ways to help the families impacted in this explosion, including the Thomas family. If you'd like to learn more about how you can help, we have that information available for you at WTAE.com. Reporting from Plum, I'm Lily Coleman for Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Back out to our breaking news. The Pittsburgh public safety officials confirming that the suspect in the active shooter situation in Garfield is dead.
Let's get back to Action News 4 reporter Marcy Cipriani, who first shared that information to her sources with you. So, Marcy, what is the very latest now?
Well, Andrew, although we now know that the suspect is dead, my source tells me that officials are going inside to make sure there are no IEDs. You'll remember we told you, if you've been following our coverage all day long, that neighbors reported not only a lot of ammunition and guns inside the home, but potentially explosives. So we have been told that they are going in now to check for IEDs. I want to give you a better look. We were able to move a little closer now that the suspect is deceased. You can take a look just there down Broad Street. You can see all of the police still there. The area is still blocked off in sections. You can see SWAT team, paramedics, lots of police officers still surrounding this area despite the suspect being deceased. And as I mentioned, they are now going inside to make sure that there are no explosive devices inside that home. As you know, we have been here all day telling you about what happened and trying to let people know about the neighborhood and the parameters and the safety issues. So while it is to a conclusion, so to speak, it is still closed off in many areas. This, as you heard, we heard of probably 1,000 or more shots throughout the day out here, certainly an exchange of gunfire. We know that flashbangs and gas were deployed, but while the suspect is dead, the scene does remain active for those reasons that I mentioned. So right now, several areas here in Garfield, several streets still closed off, SWAT team still on the scene, and just about every SWAT team still does remain here as they continue to check this house to make sure it is safe. Reporting live in Garfield, Marcy Cipriani, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Marcy, thank you. And thank you so much for your coverage, you and your photographer. I want to point out that different times during the day today, our crews were forced to duck for cover behind vehicles and to make sure that they were safe. This has been a traumatic day. It's been a scary day. It's been an emotional day for everybody involved. And thinking about the people of Pittsburgh impacted by this day.
And of course, the professionalism of Marcy, her photographer, all our crews out there during this very emotional time and very scary time is to be commended.
Yep, getting us the facts, getting us the information. All right, what we want to do now is turn to another reporter, Ashley Zilka, who has been there throughout the day. And Ashley, you have been interfacing with these people on the street there. You've seen family members of the suspect who has been killed in this, who has died in this. What's going on as we speak here now, coming up on 5:30 throughout a very long day?
That's right. At one point a few hours ago here on Penn Avenue, it was really the spot where a lot of community members came together to kind of watch what was happening. But if you even take a look behind me, you can see things are starting to wrap up here. A lot of those community members did leave. However, the family members were out here all afternoon, and some of them are actually still here. Of course, you can imagine it was emotional for everyone involved throughout the day. At one point, I saw the nephew of the suspect just fall to the ground, starting to cry. And I can tell you within the past few minutes, my other photographer, photojournalist, he did just interview one of the family members. We're going to bring that interview to you in a little bit, but this has just been a traumatizing day that some residents tell me from the beginning. Well, the people that lived on Broad Street, where they had to hide in their homes until police could come out and get them. The other people who maybe didn't have to leave their homes, but they were in the neighborhood a few blocks away, hear all of that gunfire. I mean, we've been playing it for our viewers, but just to hear all that so close, it was very scary for everyone involved. At one point, an officer told those neighbors, hey, if you're not going to go inside, hide behind a home or even a car. But right now, things are calm out here. We did see several social workers out here, as well as counselors helping some of those family members that are dealing with this. But like I mentioned, we did just have an interview with a family member, and we will bring that to you as soon as we can. Back to you.
Ashley Zoka live in Garfield for us, and Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 5 o'clock will continue right after this.
In a world full of fakes, how do you avoid buying fake items that look just like the real thing? Are you getting faked over? Experts say it's all in the details.
Visit AAPC.com to learn more about the world's
largest credentialing organization for medical billers and coders.
Years. 32 years.
29 years.
Of having a vagina. So we know, not flat.
You by Kotex, the only pad with the raised center to absorb 3 times faster. Finally, a pad shaped like you. You by Kotex. Experience the sanctuary of hands-free highway driving with Lincoln Blue Cruise. The Lincoln Summer Invitation. On now.
Welcome back to Pittsburgh's Action News 4. Our news continues now with back to school coverage. Students who attend Pittsburgh public schools return to the classroom Monday.
But today, Superintendent Dr. Wayne Walters and his leadership team holding a press conference discussing everything about the upcoming school year. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Tom Garris was there and joins us now with all the details.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 recently sat down with the district superintendent, Dr. Wayne Walters, for an in-depth interview about the year ahead. However, since that conversation, the state has approved the district's new special education plan, which leaders here say will ensure that the district's most vulnerable students are supported.
Listening to the voices of students, staff, families, Pittsburgh Oliver Citywide Academy will now operate in 4 satellite locations this year.
Oliver Citywide in the city's Marshall Shadeland neighborhood has served students with behavioral needs. Just this spring, a student died in a shooting outside of the school. This fall, students OCA serves will be in 4 different buildings, but specialized teachers and support staff will remain with them, and there will be separate teaching and learning spaces. We asked why this is a better model than what existed in the past.
And so what we're doing is we're simply changing location of the educational experience.
One of the things that Ms. Camper mentioned was about least restrictive environment, and this gets us on the pathway to address least restrictive environment with the satellite sites, but it also creates spaces for safety, spaces that address the trauma, but certainly more importantly about the educational delivery that our students must receive.
Students go back to class next Monday. That is all but kindergartners, who will go back later next week. Reporting in Homewood, Tom Garris, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
A reminder for you, we here at WTAE Channel 4 are launching our Teacher of the Month program, and we are asking you to nominate an extraordinary teacher in your community. Every month, we will select a deserving teacher from the list of your submissions, and that teacher will receive a $1,000 gift towards their project on donorschoose.org. You can find the full details and the submission form on our website, WTAE.com. We will announce the first Teacher of the Month at the end of September.
Now back to the breaking news we've been following all day long. An hours-long active shooter situation now over in Garfield. The suspect dead. A live report right after the break.
Full of fakes. How do you avoid buying fake items that look just like the real thing? Are you getting faked over? Experts say it's all in the details.
You can never have too many zeros.
Hand to Mind, developed by teachers, proven in classrooms, and loved by kids.
21 years.
32 years.
29 years. Of having a vagina. So we know, not flat.
You buy Kotex, the only pad with the raised center to absorb 3 times faster. Finally, a pad shaped like you. You buy Kotex.
For new businesses, Fiverr freelancers is like a backbone. You can find anything. My name is Jimmy Valentin, and I'm the founder of Jupiter Talents. I've seen musicians go through a lot, and this app will really help them. Working with Fiverr, it was pretty easy. All I did was log on. I went on search, I typed in app development. I found freelancers. I picked the one that fit my budget and the one that had great reviews. I got exactly what I wanted with just one click.
Join Fiverr today and get going.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 starts right now.
We really need to turn now to Pittsburgh's action weather. We've got this live look over the city of Pittsburgh from our action cam. And guess what? We're tracking the chance for some storms that really could impact you.
We're joined by our chief meteorologist, Mike Harvey, here with your certified most accurate forecast. And obviously, we saw rain throughout the course of the day during our coverage of the situation in Garfield. But it sounds like what's coming our way could be a whole lot stronger.
Yeah, a lot stronger than what we've seen through the day. We have some thunderstorms that are moving from the north down into the area. And I'll show you that here in just 1 second. Right now, with the rain, temperatures cool. It is 69 degrees outside, dew point at 64 degrees. As we go into the day tomorrow, these dew points are going to jump up about 10 degrees. It is going to be very humid as we go through the day tomorrow. So here is the rain that we've been seeing throughout the day. You see most of it is very light that we have been contending with, but up to the north, this is the thunderstorms that are moving across Lake Erie as we speak. You can see all the lightning strikes that are lightening up, the heavy rain potential for hail as this slides down towards the south and into the area. So this is what we'll be keeping an eye on as we head through tonight. We get towards 8, 9 o'clock tonight. We'll be looking for that to move into the area in a little wider view so you can see the extent of those thunderstorms that are moving in our direction. So later tonight, those will move through the area, could stick around into early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Thursday, likely dry for most of us through much of the day. And then as we get into tomorrow night, Thursday night again, late Thursday night into early Friday, again, another band of showers and thunderstorms moving into the area. But that should leave us with a dry Friday for the most part. And we take it into the weekend, and we're in pretty good shape as well. We will have some clouds, possibly some fog on Saturday in the morning. As far as how much rain, could be a lot up to the north, especially the further north you go. Up along I-80, could see an inch of rain or more. That will taper off as we go through tonight and into tomorrow morning. As you go further down to the south, we do have a flood watch. It goes into effect at 8 o'clock tonight. Will be in effect until 11 o'clock. That's from Pittsburgh up to the north. Tomorrow, 67 degrees for your low temperature. Humidity will increase dramatically tomorrow. Mostly cloudy, isolated showers. And then as we go late into tomorrow night, that's when we'll have showers and thunderstorms. It'll be very humid tomorrow. It'll be quite hot, 87 degrees. Mostly cloudy through much of the day. It's going to feel like mid-90s for tomorrow when you add in the humidity and the temperatures. 87 also on Friday, primarily showers in the early morning. Saturday, we're looking at only a slight chance of rain. Most locations dry, a high of 82 degrees. 79 on Sunday. We'll have a little more sunshine to finish out the weekend.
Okay, Mike, thank you. And remember, when storms roll in, make sure you have that free WTAE mobile app. Get instant alerts and up-to-the-minute conditions in your neighborhood. Everything you need to know to keep both you and your family safe.
We return now to our breaking news out of the city of Pittsburgh, Garfield neighborhood today, where we saw an active shooter situation play out from a neighborhood. And we've got a team of crews out there covering this all day today. And we do want to report to you that we know that the shooter, who was holed up in a house for most of the day today, is dead, has been pronounced dead by city medics. Right now, what we want to do is go to Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Kaylee Gunderson with the very latest from public safety folks. Kaylee, have you heard yet when public safety, perhaps city officials will address you and answer some of your questions?
Well, Shannon, we are still waiting for an update on that, where we can meet them, where we can potentially get to ask some questions about everything that we've seen unfold here today. But I'll just show you where it stands for the crews that are on scene. This is the corner where we are, North Matilda Street and Kincaid, just down this block towards Broad Street where the house is. You can still see SWAT teams, various crews still gathered there on the corner, and we've seen some emergency vehicles come through as well, EMS, things of that nature. Several drones have gone up in the air since we know that the suspect was confirmed dead. Now, within just a few moments after we got that official confirmation, we heard one more flashbang. It was startling, of course, to people in the area. They're wondering, oh no, has something restarted? What's going on? But we were able to confirm as well that that was just confirmation of death, making sure there was no added threat inside the home. So that's, neighbors here, of course, reeling with just everything they've experienced today. Some of them, relieved to know what's happened, but telling me that it's very upsetting and very sad to know that a neighbor people who I've talked to say that they didn't know this person personally, but it's sad nonetheless to know that a neighbor has died and that this chaotic scene has played out in such a way. Some neighbors tell us that throughout the day they have seen officers going up and down the street, letting them know just brief updates of what's happening, letting them know that they need to either get out of their homes, get down to their basements, things like that. So it's just been certainly a scary situation for them, wanting to know answers, but ultimately they told me they wish this would have ended differently. Shannon.
Yeah, absolutely. Make no mistake, Kaylee, this is a tragedy. We know that a Pittsburgh area family has lost a family member, and it's also a situation that this community and law enforcement and first responders will be processing for some time all of them in very real danger for many, many hours today. We just hear an update from Public Safety in the city of Pittsburgh. We expect a briefing in just a few minutes at 5:45. As soon as we get that briefing, that information from leaders of the city of Pittsburgh, we will bring that to you right here on Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
And the beginning of that process of trying to get some answers to what took place today. Let's start our attention now to Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Ashley Zilka, who is live on scene and has talked to people in that neighborhood all day long. And Ashley, now that the situation has been diffused by Pittsburgh police and the suspect is now dead, what are you hearing from neighbors there?
Well, Andrew, as law enforcement starts to leave, the Salvation Army actually just pulled up to help those impacted by this. We've been talking to residents all day long. A lot of them had to evacuate. We did talk to a few more just a little bit ago. They said they're not going to be allowed in for a few more hours, but take a listen to this interview from one of the residents I talked to earlier.
I was barricaded in the basement from hearing all the commotion out front. And the officers just banged on the door and was telling me that I needed to be evacuated for my safety.
What was going through your mind when you see an officer banging on your door?
Fear, just fear. Just wanted to be safe and away from everything that's going on.
Now, do you know anything about the home where this is happening or the suspect?
No, nothing at all. I mean, I've been in the neighborhood for 15 years and pretty much stay to myself. So I don't know other than just to say hi, bye. That's it.
Now, you came up here on Penn Avenue and you've kind of been watching this unfold. What's it like to see this happen in the area where you live?
Just kind of sad. Just sad. We're in an up and coming neighborhood. Really friendly neighbors. The community is really, everyone's involved. Just sad to see this happen in our neighborhood.
Now, when police got you safely out of your home, did they tell you how long you would? I mean, obviously you have to stay out of here until this is resolved, but did they tell you anything else?
No, actually, they just shielded me to get away from the scene, and just reassured me that just stay calm and patient. Well, not calm, but patient.
And those are the types of stories we've been having all day long. I am going to send it back to you now because police are going to be giving an update in the next minute or two, and we do have to shift a little bit over, so we will be right back. But for now, we'll be saying goodbye so we can go to get to police sound.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad Ashley Zilka is in place in the location where police are going to be giving their briefing. We expect hopefully the Pittsburgh Police Chief to join us for that briefing and detail what took place in the city of Pittsburgh today. We do understand that it was the city of Pittsburgh SWAT team who really affected the whole command of this operation today, and so many different agencies and involved in this.
A lot of support from all around the state. So, of course, it was a team effort to make this happen, to come to a peaceful resolution of this, at least as far as the community is concerned. Once again, the suspect is dead tonight. We're going to get more detail from Pittsburgh police as to how this all unfolded, how it began, their process to get to the shooter and defuse him from hurting any more people than he did this afternoon. So we're going to carry that press conference for you as soon as it begins. So stay right here on Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Let's bring Bob Mayo back in, who's been nearby in a neighborhood not far away from where this shooting took place. This active shooter was holed up in a house all day long for many hours, maybe 6 hours, Bob. And we talked about the impact to one family dealing with the tragedy, the loss of this person, the suspect in this case. But then so many others, Bob, who are impacted by the violence and the danger they experienced today. Very traumatic for so many Pittsburgh neighbors.
That's true. And
Bob, we're going to interrupt you there and go over to the press conference. Let's listen into the news conference from Pittsburgh Public Safety right now.
On Broad Street to execute a court-ordered eviction at that location. Once we arrived at the house, it took us several minutes to make contact with the subject, at which time we did, and he immediately opened fire on our deputies. They began to take cover, return fire, engaged in a pretty significant gun battle.
Can you tell us, was anyone injured in this process of the situation?
The only injury we had was, it was initially reported that one of our deputies was shot. However, that wasn't the case. He was injured when he dove over a partition trying to take cover while he was taking fire and returning fire. He he had a superficial head injury, which just required a few stitches.
Chief Press, I understand that your deputies, how many arrived at the home and what kind of armor were they wearing?
They had body armor. There were 7 of them. They arrived. They all took different positions outside the residence, and once they made contact, obviously things changed dramatically, and they were scrambling for cover. They were fired upon. They returned fire, and like I said, there was a pretty lengthy gun battle until the city arrived. City SWAT. They arrived, stabilized the scene. They took the scene over. The city SWAT team did.
Were police expecting that maybe it wasn't going to go well?
We certainly didn't expect this. Certainly, there's factors that go into these types of things. We do. We evaluate. We respond accordingly. But we certainly had no information whatsoever that this individual was this dangerous, or that there were firearms in the house.
Did you know anything about him prior to serving this eviction notice?
We did. It wasn't anything super out of the ordinary. But like I said, we had a pre-event meeting about it, and we formalized a strategy and we executed as we thought was appropriate. But we certainly didn't expect what we were up against.
Is that number 7 normal, Sheriff?
No.
When you go to a house? No.
No, we increased the numbers of deputies for this single event.
Just how massive this operation was. I mean, we had gunfire going back and forth for hours and hours and hours. Can you talk about how important it was to have all of these agencies here with you helping in that effort?
Yeah, certainly. I know the chief, Scarrato, could speak to that probably more because he was coordinating all the different agencies. It was federal, state, local. And in my opinion, I thought everybody came together. They knew their roles. They knew their assignments. Communication was good, and we were able to stabilize the situation. Unfortunately, it resulted in a death. But I just want to commend all the, my deputies and all the law enforcement officers that responded. I mean, they did one heck of a job, and nobody's hurt, and everybody's going home to their family. So we're certainly thankful.
Sheriff, can you reveal how the suspect died?
I can't at this time.
Can you talk about just the sheer amount of ammunition that was used today? I mean, we were out here hearing dozens, if not 100 shots at a time.
Yeah, there were, I can't even tell you the number of volleys of gunfire back and forth between the suspect. I mean, he had a lot of ammunition in that house. And certainly we were, all of us were strapped, with ammunition. And we were calling for additional ammunition. But, we were able to secure the scene. Like I said, we tried to give them every opportunity to come out. But, it elevated to the SWAT team's response. And we were able to end the threat after several hours.
Sheriff, can you tell us
I can't confirm his identity at this time.
Sheriff, can you tell us if nearby homes have been searched to ensure that nobody was injured by a stray bullet or anything like that?
Yeah, the chief can speak to that. I know there were evacuations, and we don't believe anyone was hurt as a result of this.
Sheriff, do you ever request SWAT in certain situations where this may be a volatile, violent person to accompany your deputies? Is that ever?
I mean, it's occurred. It's not certainly something we do ordinarily, but in this case, it escalated tremendously to where we needed support, and the city SWAT came to stabilize the crime scene. Even though there was a continuance of gunfire and a gunfight, they were able to stabilize it to ensure nobody was injured.
Do you know how many weapons or what kind of ammunition he had stockpiled?
I can't comment on that.
Was this a situation where he thought that this was his family home and he deserved to be able to stay inside of it?
I can't speak for him.
Can you tell us if you warned neighbors ahead of time that this eviction notice was going to happen?
I can't release that at this time.
Did you have any conversation with him before gunshots rang out? Not you, but the officers. Like, was there any sort of conversation or yelling or any conversing?
We were not successful in that. Just once we tried to make contact, we were outside the house. We called for him. We wanted to talk to him. We wanted to try and bring him up peacefully, to execute the order. But clearly, that wasn't in the cards today.
Chief Cross, it's my understanding that this individual met with Mayor Gainey to discuss the eviction. Can you delve into a little bit more about what knowledge or foreknowledge you had about the situation?
I'm not aware of that, and I can't comment on that.
Are you able to confirm if he was in fact struck by gunfire from a deputy officer, law enforcement, or if it was self-inflicted?
I can't confirm that at this point.
So it's possible it was self-inflicted?
I can't comment on that.
So, Sheriff, before they rammed the door, they tried to get him out. They tried to use verbal commands to come out, and just can you reiterate what happened before?
Yeah, we tried talking to him. We tried to get him out, to bring him out, to talk to him, and try and implement a dialogue with him, and that was unsuccessful. And once we made contact with him at the door, it drastically changed, and we were faced with deadly force, and we had nothing else to do at that point.
Sheriff, can you tell us where he was shooting from inside the house?
He was shooting out of the first floor and the second floor windows, and through the wall, from what I've been told.
Just Roberts, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you very much.
Larry Scirotto, Chief Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. I just wanted to speak to the tactical response. Obviously, it was a multi-agency tactical response, starting with the exceptional work of Pittsburgh SWAT, and then our supporting partners from Pennsylvania State Police, the Allegheny County Police, the Allegheny County Sheriffs, the Attorney General's Office, the ATF, the FBI. So all of those tactical resources were deployed throughout this incident to bring it to the ending resolution that we came to tonight. And in that coordinated effort saved many lives, many officers' lives in a very tense and rapidly uncertain environment. And with that, the officers preserved life of the neighbors, preserved life of those living next to that structure, and also obviously our officers. So at this point, we believe that the subject was neutralized in the gunfight, and with that, we have given and did give him every opportunity to surrender. That's why an incident like this took the amount of time that it took. It was about a little over 4.5 hours, and in that we've provided ample opportunity for peaceful surrender that wasn't met with that outcome.
Is this normal to have just this amount of gunfire being fired in standout situations to last ultimately this long?
I don't think anything about this incident was normal, and in that we are faced with these are environments we trained for, but don't ever expect to occur. However, we were very prepared for the threat that we faced. The timeline was because we don't rush the judgment. We want a peaceful conclusion, a surrender in this instance, and so we use various methods to accomplish that surrender. And in that, we weren't with every opportunity to surrender, we were met with gunfire. And so therefore, again, we would reformulate a plan, redeploy a different strategy, and again, giving the subject opportunity to surrender. He did not, and when he did not, we would move to a different type of alternative.
Can you talk about the drones being shot out of the air?
That was another alternative. That was opportunities to be able to attempt to communicate and to determine situational awareness of what we were facing inside the residence. And every time we had deployed one of those, 3 or 4 instances, it was disabled by gunfire.
So 3 to 4 times those drones were shot?
Yes.
Out of the air?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any information that Pittsburgh police responded to the home earlier this year? Basically, the suspect saying that there was some type of theft. And do you know anything about that?
I don't have any information relative to him or that home prior to the call for assistance by the Sheriff's Department.
We have neighbors saying that they called multiple times, concerned about this gentleman, concerned about how unstable and volatile he was, and that their calls went unanswered.
Yeah. I'm sure as the investigation continues, we'll learn a lot more about him, the home, the family, and the potential issues or volatility that we faced today, and what led up to that. So we'll explore all options because, again, we want to be able to prevent this from occurring, prevent this from ever being a situation in one of our neighborhoods. The impact and the trauma that creates it for our neighborhoods is exceptional, and we do everything in our power to have community calm in that regard.
Were his windows boarded up with threatening messages, do not enter, no trespassing?
I never saw the home. So from a tactical command position, I don't get close enough to see it. So, but I was obviously see it in the accounting of the event as we reflect on this throughout the investigation. Anything else?
Do you have any information about him being a sovereign citizen?
I don't have any information as it relates to the subject other than what we were faced in the moment. I'm sure we'll determine a lot of his association, if any, as the investigation continues. The Pennsylvania State Police will lead the investigation moving forward as they would with members of the PBP and Allegheny County Police Department being involved in the gunfire exchange. So PSP will lead this investigation moving forward, and I'm sure we'll uncover a lot more about the subject and his associations as we move forward.
Can you say again how you feel about the team?
What's that? I'm sorry. I'm beyond proud of the work that the men and women of all of our law enforcement partners displayed, the patience, the discipline, and to have an outcome like this where no officers were injured, no community members were injured. That shows the great restraint, the great training that they participate in, and just the professionalism of all the members that were involved in this incident. So thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for
Have a
your
good day.
patience.
Pittsburgh Police Chief Larry Scarato addressing the media, and then we just saw the Allegheny County Sheriff Kevin Krause also talking about how his deputies served that eviction notice this morning with body armor on. There were 7 of them. They knew they were walking into some kind of trouble, but like they both said, nothing about this was normal. We also heard from those law enforcement leaders there that the suspect in this case, the shooter in this case, was neutralized in the gunfire with police.
Okay, those are our first comments from law enforcement, but our coverage does continue. This will do it for Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 5 o'clock.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 at 6 o'clock starts now.
Now on Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
They just started fire. And like the suspect, he just started to fire.
Rapid gunfire takes over a city block in Pittsburgh. A man barricades himself inside of a home in Garfield and sparks an hours-long gunfight with police. Police bringing in drones and armored vehicles as the situation escalated.
I guess it just goes to show that this kind of thing can happen anywhere.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 begins with breaking news.
We want to thank you for joining us on this Wednesday at 6. I'm Mike Clark.
And I'm Kelly Sasso. We continue following our big story today, our breaking news. Hundreds of shots were fired in broad daylight today in Pittsburgh's Garfield neighborhood. They were being exchanged between a man holed up in a home and police. That man was ultimately shot and killed. We now know he was 63-year-old Bill Hardison. Neighbors shared this photo of him with Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
A very frightening 6.5 hours unfolding in the 4800 block of Broad Street. This is right near busy Penn Avenue, just a couple of blocks away from UPMC Children's Hospital. People were asked to avoid the area entirely and shelter in place. Sky 4 capturing the moment SWAT members pulled a neighbor from their home as that shooting unfolded.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 has team coverage of the situation tonight. We do want to begin with Marcy Cipriani, who has been there all day for us. And Marcy, we now know this all started with an eviction notice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You heard Sheriff Kevin Krause talk about that, talk about bringing 7 sheriff's deputies here to the area. In fact, let me go ahead and show you where they went. It's the home just over there. It's probably hard for you to see, but it's in that stretch of Broad Street. You can see the SWAT vehicle still here on the scene, but Sheriff Krause said that there's 7 of the deputies came because they knew there could be some sort of issue. They were wearing body armor when they tried to serve that eviction notice. That is when the suspect in this case opened fire, and hours throughout the day we heard him opening fire. We saw police bringing in more ammunition just to continue to battle with him, and you heard officials there say that he did die as a result of the gun battle with police that lasted for about a minute, maybe about an hour or so ago. This is what Sheriff Kevin Krause said about the moments throughout the day.
Yeah, there were, I can't even tell you the number of volleys of gunfire back and forth between the suspect. I mean, he had a lot of ammunition in that house. And certainly we were, all of us were strapped, with ammunition. We were calling for additional ammunition, but, we were able to secure the scene. like I said, we try to give them every opportunity to come out.
In fact, we actually heard on loudspeakers the officers try to convince the suspect to surrender throughout this day. And this went on from 10:30 in the morning until just a short time ago when, as we have told you and we learned from police, that the suspect died during the gunfire with police here the final time about an hour or so ago. So that is the very latest from Garfield. Reporting live, Marcy Cipriani, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
All right, thank you, Marcy. Another breaking detail. We just received a statement from Mayor Ed Gainey. He said, in part, I ask for you to join us in prayer tonight for the entire community of Garfield, a peaceful neighborhood that was home to an unfortunate tragedy today.
Yeah, and the mayor went on to say, as a city, we are committed to caring for all those who have been harmed, and we will continue working over the next several days to connect this neighborhood to mental health and trauma support services. Now, as we told you, this did all begin this morning with sheriff's deputies who were serving an eviction notice.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 investigative reporter Paul Van Osdell has been digging into those eviction records and learning more about the suspect from his family. Paul?
Well, my court records show the house at the center of today's eviction proceeding was previously owned by William Hardison's brother and then later his father. Earlier this year, Hardison's father sold the house to a local real estate company, but Hardison broke into the house and refused to leave. Now, today we came across social media video showing Hardison involved in a confrontation with police during a previous eviction proceeding. Now, the video shows Hardison arguing with officers as they attempt to evict him from another property about 3 years ago. An attorney for the property involved in today's eviction tells me Hardison posted threatening messages on the front door. 2 weeks ago, neighbors reported that Hardison brought 2 gallons of gasoline into the house. Police did a welfare check, but no one answered the door. So this morning at about 10:30, sheriff's deputies showed up to evict him. Earlier today, I spoke by phone with Hardison's son, and he told me Hardison did not believe the house was ever sold to anyone outside the family. Does he believe that this house rightfully belongs to him?
Yes, very much so.
Why is that?
Because my uncle, my uncle passed away. You know what I mean? And he, like I said, he only had a few more years left to pay on the house. You know what I mean? So why would they sell it to someone for $25,000 when hundreds of thousands of dollars been put into that house? You know what I mean? They just redid the house. They just remodeled the house in the process of him passing away.
Now, last year, Hardison pleaded guilty to carrying a firearm without a license, and a judge gave him probation. He has a number of other misdemeanor offenses dating back to the mid-1990s, but never did any hard time for any of them. Now, Hardison's former attorney tells me he believed in the Moorish sovereign citizen movement, and that is a group that basically believes the government has no authority, including the police, have no authority over individual citizens. Reporting live in Garfield, Paul Van Osdell, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
All right, Paul, thank you very much for your work out there all day for us today.
Now, the state police are actively investigating as well. We're going to talk to Trooper Rocco Gagliardi now for an update.
So what can you tell us about today?
Yeah, so today was a pretty eventful day and a long day for all law enforcement involved, right? We got the call earlier this morning about the sheriff's office being involved in the eviction notice that kind of went south. Right. But let's pause there and talk about how great the situational awareness was of the sheriff's department today and this morning. Right. We always talk about it in our profession, maybe some people getting complacent with certain calls. Right. To them, this might have just been a simple eviction notice, which they probably do thousands of times a year. Right. But they were on their toes. Right. They were doing their job and had great situational awareness. So even when they arrive on scene for something maybe as simple as an eviction notice, they were able to take cover right away and ask for additional units to help out, right? At that point, you saw everyone that was here earlier today. And about halfway through, it was kind of deemed due to some variables of who was there, who was already shot at, and who was shooting, right? It was in the best interest for us as state police to take over the investigation Okay. At that time, right, the city and the sheriff's office were still the closest entity to that house, right? So they were still in charge of all operational aspects of what was going on during that pretty much of a gunfight, right? But while that was going on, right, we brought our CERT team out, right? You saw the Rook being used and all that available service. And we work really well with the city SWAT team as well. So it's a nice hand in hand that we were able to follow through with everything we wanted to today. But while that was going on, our criminal investigation unit was already beginning work conducting interviews, checking surveillance, and everything that needed to start the process. I know the situation now is somewhat concluded, but for us and our investigational team or our major case team, right, our forensic unit, our reconstruction analysis, our criminal investigational unit, their work is just beginning, right? We have to conduct all these interviews and take this incident step by step. And that first thing we have to do is make sure the scene is secure, right? And then we can start alerting the individuals, because we got some calls from residents saying, hey, when can I go back to my house? We want to make sure our pets are okay. We understand that, right? We have to take our secure measurements and forensics first, and then we will be able to help with the community to see what we can slowly get back to. But we're going to be out here for a good bit tonight.
Yeah, approximately how long?
Yeah, I don't. This incident, like if you don't live here, I'd still recommend, and we still recommend, right? You stay far away from this incident because you're going to see a lot of police presence still, right? We got to make sure all the other houses are secure. There's maybe no other threats, right, to the public. And we have to start that investigational work, which will take a lot of time. You guys were here when I gave you that quick update about what happened earlier. During that really quick update, there was about a couple hundred rounds popped off in that 15-minute time frame, right? So it just concludes we have to check everything according to that incident, right? So we got to check, make sure the officers are safe, right? Make sure everyone gets their hospital checks. Maybe they need some counseling and therapy first, and then we can start our investigational interviews with all these different departments that helped us out today.
Do you have any inkling of how many houses nearby were hit with bullets?
Right.
Gunfire?
So that's what we're doing right now. So hopefully either today or sometime this week, or hopefully when I get those answers, I can release those up to date. Right. But like I said, the first priority when everyone got here was to make sure we evacuated those residents in case that were to happen. So now we can go through and check all these residents in case for broken items, shot out windows, you name it. We're going to check that all out.
So those residents, they might not be able to go home for a couple more hours.
Yeah, we're going to check with lead investigators. Our reconstruction analysis team actually has a really interesting tool that they start scanning the area, and that gives them a good map layout and size about how far away this was, how far away that was. While that system is running, you really can't get in there because that's going to mess up all the measurements. So once that's done and we get the base of forensics in there, because there's a lot of evidence, right? And we got to make sure we don't lose any of that. Then we can get in contact with all these residents that are behind you, and hopefully they can start checking in on their pets and residents.
I don't know if you know this, but how many residents had to evacuate?
I don't know that right now.
Okay.
I know there was a good bit, in which we had to use, right, those Bearcats and those Rooks to help evacuate people.
Was it a PSP negotiator? I'm told that they played messages from family members. Do you know, was it a PSP investigator who tried to talk to him?
Yeah, so I know our CERT team wasn't the first emergency response team here. They did help out. I don't know who was talking with them. We have negotiators, so does Allegheny County and the city. So it was a real collective effort. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to shoot at one of our brothers or sisters, everyone's coming to help out, and that's what we had here today. So big shout out to the city of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, the sheriff's office, FBI was here, and if I keep naming things, I'm going to miss them. So we had a lot of agencies here to help us out with this incident.
So this happened. City of Pittsburgh is involved. Sheriff's office is involved. Can you just tell us why state police, for the folks watching at home, why are state police investigating?
Yeah, so it's a lot of different moving variables, and that's stuff we're still figuring out now. But it comes really down to who was involved in the incident and how that plays out, right? And it comes to the fact that maybe agencies don't want to investigate their own members and stuff like that. So if you really notice the incident, we helped, right? But we were a bit later to the scene. So we weren't really deep into the active area until CERT got here. So us playing a step back out of that circle, right, we were able to start that investigational work while all those other units were busy.
So Trooper, can you sum up the things you will be looking at, the PSP and all of this?
Yeah, so the first thing we're going to look at is we're actually going to look out with the medical examiner report, right? That will get you your name release of the individual, and then we can move on from there about structure and body decay, or maybe what type of injury that male suffered, right? From there, we're going to look at all evidence concluded, and then it's going to be a lot of thorough interviews, right? We had We had some concerned members of the community speaking with troopers earlier around noon, right? Now we have to go through and talk to every officer involved with this incident, see what he or she saw, how many rounds they might have fired, and that's going to take a lot of time. But that evidence in those interviews are so crucial to this investigation. You guys were kind of a little bit further away. You really couldn't see what was happening. But, we have multiple drones in the air. We have multiple vehicles, multiple officers, all trying to surround a building that's connected to others. So it's very complicated work. And hats off to those special agents that report to the scene to handle business, right? Because they did a phenomenal job.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for the release. I should have that hopefully this afternoon.
Okay, we were just hearing there from Trooper Rocco Gagliardi with Pennsylvania State Police, just really telling us everything they can right now and giving us a little bit of insight into how long this investigation could last.
You heard him talk about the evacuations and when people could go back home tonight. But along with those evacuations in the neighborhood, businesses were also placed on lockdown, including West Penn Hospital and UPMC Children's Hospital. Officials from both hospitals say they added security and they're continuing to see patients. Pittsburgh Public Schools also placing Obama Academy and the Montessori schools on lockdown. Students there have not returned to class yet to start the new school year. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Bob Mayo has been keeping us informed